The June 11th, 2024 meeting of the St. Joseph County Council is now called to order. Please stand for the invocation, which will be given by Councilman Figg, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Our God and our Heavenly Father, we once again come before you this month, asking your blessing upon this meeting. I pray you just guide and direct as we conduct the business of this county. I pray give you honor and glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Thomas, may I have a motion on the minutes, please?
Motion to approve May minutes, Mr. President.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes of the May meeting are approved. I want to make a statement here and say that tonight there will be no public comment on solar. The council rules forbid public comment on anything during privilege of the floor on anything that is on tonight's agenda. Because solar is on tonight's agenda, there will be no public comment tonight on that particular topic during the privilege of the floor. There will be opportunities for public comment next week at the Area Plan Commission at 3:30 in this room. They will take public comment. And a month from now, at the July St. Joseph County Council meeting, we will take public comment at that time on solar. But tonight, there will be no comment on solar during privilege of the floor. Any other petitions, communications, or miscellaneous matters? Hearing none. Mr. Catanzarite, would you please do our St. Joseph County Council Board appointments?
Thank you, President Root. The St. Joe County Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team needs to be staffed with new appointments or reappointments, and the following people are recommended to be reappointed: Wendy Ballum, Amy Bennett, Larry Bennett, Honorable Judge John Broden, Mary Batiste Jones, Jesse Carlton, Prosecutor Ken Cotter, Honorable Andre Gamage, Magistrate, Dan Gibo, Patricia Hancock, Honorable Judge Elizabeth Hurley, Susan Rotzi, Scott Wiskowski, Dr. Carrie Sears, and Susan Tybon. Those are the recommendation for reappointments to the St. Joe County Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion or any further nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of the nominations as read by Mr. Catanzarite, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Those nominations are approved by the council. Next up is a report from the county auditor.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Next up is a report from the county commissioners, and tonight we will have President Baxmeyer from the county commissioners presenting our 2024 State of the County. Mr. Baxmeyer.
Thank you, President Root. I was surprised when you made the announcement about no public comment that a lot of people didn't leave. They obviously are here to hear the State of the County address. Humor. President Root, members of the council, Auditor Murphy, and fellow residents of St. Joseph County, thank you for this opportunity to address you and present the great work that is being accomplished every day by the public servants in every department of county government. You know, preparing this address reinforced my appreciation of our county government. Reviewing the submissions from the elected officials and department heads, I want to express my appreciation for all their work that went into the preparation. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, the next few minutes will only allow me to point out the highlights of what has occurred last year. There's so much that they do to help support the residents of our county. And to fully appreciate what has been achieved, you're going to receive the full State of the County address with all those submissions electronically. And I hope that you'll take a few minutes and look at those. And I encourage people in the audience and those online to take a look too, because those statements by each of the elected officials and department heads have so much to offer as to what is really happening within the county. I'm just going to hit the highlights of most of the departments that had significant accomplishments, achievements during this year. Adult probation. The Adult Probation Department was awarded grant funds from the Indiana Department of Correction and the Indiana Office of Court Services for continued operations of the Pretrial Services Division and specialized case processing for domestic violence offenders under the direction of Chief Judge Elizabeth Hurley. The goal of these and other initiatives is to reduce recidivism in our county. Archives continues its mission of managing judicial, county, city, and other governmental records. I want to note that their efforts were recognized by the Indiana Association of Indiana Counties, who presented Archives last year with the Local Government Cooperation Award for their collaborative efforts between St. Joseph County and the city of South Bend. Our county assessor, Mike Castellan, and his department worked to improve the delivery of services through enhancements to the compliance, appeals, and personal property departments. A key achievement was the continued effort to expand the staff's knowledge and expertise. Starting 2023 with only 2 Level 3 assessors and appraisers, by the end of the year there were 12. And by the end of 2025, it is projected that all 32 appraisers will have their Level 3 status achieved, which is an accomplishment not only by Mike, but the staff as well. Our county auditor, John Murphy, and his department continued to deliver and enhance the services provided through their office. Significant achievements included completion of the county's fiscal audit for years 2021 and 2022, resulting in the conclusion of 2 annual comprehension financial reports. The auditor's office is now caught up after COVID-19 caused a lengthy delay in auditing for several local government entities. The auditor collaboratively prepared the 2024 county budget with the county council and county commissioners in the amount of $225.9 million. And in preparation for the new over 55 tax credit, which the council passed in the fall of 2023, the auditor's office worked hard to transition all of the tax credit and tax deduction applications online, and also assisted with frequently asked questions sessions that provided the community an opportunity to learn about the new tax credit and ask questions. The building department experienced another record-breaking year as the residential sector remained constant and the commercial sector boomed in all areas. They processed 12,346 permits, performed 15,879 inspections, and traveled an astounding 117,427 miles in serving the residents of South Bend and the county of St. Joseph. The Circuit Court, as you know, hears the majority of all civil filings and felony cases. The Circuit Court bench consists of the Honorable John Broden, the Honorable Andre Gamage, the Honorable Julie Verhey, and the Honorable William Wilson. They completed 8 jury trials during 2023, which included 2 grand juries and 6 civil trials. A total of 231 residents from our county appeared for jury duty. Clerk Amy Rolfus and her staff worked to restructure the office and implement new policies and procedures to provide efficient and improved customer service. Key accomplishments included updating and revising the Vote Center training program and materials. An Elections 101 workshop was created and implemented as a voter education program to engage and inform the St. Joseph County community. And they received a grant from the Office of the Indiana Secretary of State, Diego Morales, in the amount of $110,000 to improve and enhance security of the voting equipment stored in the St. Joseph County warehouse. Dr. Patricia Jordan, our county coroner, along with others, worked diligently to open the long-awaited county morgue. As stated by Dr. Jordan, most of our citizens will thankfully never need the morgue, but for those that do, we are equipped to care for their loved ones. The Emergency Management Agency continued to work towards the goal of planning and preparation for emergency operations for the safety of all St. Joseph County residents. One of the many accomplishments in 2023 was the awarding of the contract using ARP funds to upgrade and expand the siren warning system. Our Facility Maintenance Department saw significant changes. Two major initiatives that were begun last year. One was the review of the size of the maintenance staff and utilization of a computerized maintenance management system to both improve response to immediate needs and have a planned preventive maintenance schedule. The other initiative was to address immediate needs in the county city building, particularly regarding the heating system. With the appreciated support of the council, this will be implemented and completed in 2024. Our Fleet Department, which was created during the latter part of 2023 with the support from the County Council, has begun many initiatives designed to result in a more modern and effective department. These initiatives include replacing older vehicles, implementation of GPS tracking, and a rewrite of the fleet policy to align with industry's best practices and standards. The Health Department had a year of transition and growth. There have been changes in the department's structure and leadership, its vision and mission, as well as increased opportunities offered through new funding by Health First Indiana. While the revenue from Health First Indiana wasn't received until the first of the year, planning for how that money would be used began in 2023. The department planned to allocate approximately 1/3 of the Health First Indiana funds in partnership with 19 community organizations to improve the overall health of our community. Our History Museum offered a total of 52,757 experiences for residents, school students, and tourists. You know, it was in 2000 when the museum had on view the Gettysburg Address, a signed copy by Abraham Lincoln, that those levels of visitation were achieved. The History Museum cites 33 additional accomplishments the past year. And one of the key ones was the gaining of approval to move the museum's Navarre cabin from Leaper Park East to the museum campus. This continues to add to the quality of life offered in St. Joe County. Human Resources has embarked on several initiatives aimed at modernizing processes, improving efficiency, and fostering a collaborative environment. These included a new hire and orientation process to improve the onboarding experience and a new applicant software program, Easy Hire, to greatly impact our recruitment efforts by increasing outreach and allowing the department to identify and attract new talent. Infrastructure Planning and Growth. The Division of Public Works completed over $9 million in construction paving projects. This equates to 31.5 miles of roadways, and in addition, the Highway Department chip sealed an additional 40.3 miles of roads within the county. They substantially completed construction on the Douglas Road project. The Highway Garage Capital Improvements Project was bid and awarded. This will include repairs and improvements to the new Carlisle, Woodland, and North Liberty garages. And as you know, on December 21st, a fire occurred in the Woodland Highway garage, damaging several vehicles, as well as the main garage building. We've begun work immediately with insurance and other county departments to document the loss and return the garage back to operation as soon as possible. Economic development. There are several projects that moved forward as anticipated. One was construction on the GM Samsung EVS project in the Indiana Enterprise Center, and tax abatements were approved by the County Council for that project, representing $4.5 billion in new investment, which will result in creating 1,600 new jobs, as well as the AM General project, which represents $67.5 million in new investment and 329 new jobs. Our Planning, Zoning, and Code Division completed the discovery, visioning, and framework phases of the county's new comprehensive plan. Finalization and adoption of the plan will occur this year. Assisted the town of New Carlisle and Maycog in drafting a new comprehensive plan for the town, and worked in partnership with the building department to identify blighted properties and initiate condemnation and demolition of several unsafe structures. Parks, which manages over 1,300 acres of parkland, used ARP funds for the fiber connection of the maintenance facility at Bendix Woods to improve phone and internet service. Work began on the 5-year master plan from 2024 to 2028. And if you've not been there, the Sugar Camp Days, which is a great event in the early spring, celebrated its 50th anniversary. Sheriff Bill Redmond cited numerous achievements, and this is one of those items which I hope you'll take a look at in the full packet of all the submissions. They saw an increase in delivery of services dedicated to the safety of our residents throughout the county. Our Department of Procurement continued its efforts to serve 35-plus departments and divisions, and this included processing 10,853 purchase orders and 358 change orders. The prosecutor's office, led by Ken Cotter, filed over 13,000 cases in 2023. Due to the increased caseload, the council authorized 3 additional paralegal positions in the criminal division and 2 caseworkers for the child support division. Our St. Joseph County Cyber Crimes Unit continues to be a poster child for digital forensic examination teams. The Public Defender Department, under Jeff Kemmel, our Chief Public Defender, reported an increase in caseload. 1,981 felony cases were handled, up from 1,585 felony cases the year before. It's important to note that the department received a record reimbursement of $1.2 million, which is through the Public Defender Commission, which is the maximum reimbursement allowed. Mary Beth Wisniewski, our recorder, recorded 30,511 documents. 82% were filed electronically. And the office joined with the Indiana Recorders Association to launch a property fraud protection statewide awareness campaign to educate property owners about the steps to take if they suspect potentially fraudulent activity regarding their property. Julie Toby, the executive director of PSAP, processed 416,909 calls and an increase in text messages for a total of 20,382. The dispatchers monitored over 3 million radio transmissions. An important change was the implementation of the Pittman schedule for 12-hour shifts to improve the quality of life for dispatchers. This had the added benefit of reducing mandated overtime hours by 6,000, a significant savings. Chief Judge Hurley, on behalf of the Superior Court, stated the most noteworthy action in Superior Courts in 2023 was the formation of a behavioral services court presided over by Magistrate Elizabeth Hartke. The BSC follows a problem-solving court model with the goal to address and treat, rather than incarcerate, persons in criminal court due to their mental health diagnoses. Finally, as we're almost halfway through 2024, many initiatives which we began in 2023 are already nearing completion. Some of those initiatives include the capital improvements plan. As you know, we asked for and received funding for the facility condition assessment and space allocation study. That information has been received, and we are moving forward with the creation of the capital improvement plan by incorporating input from elected officials and department heads regarding their capital needs. The CIP will provide the council, officials, and residents with a look at the current and future needs of St. Joseph County. The new employee handbook, an initiative started actually several years ago, has been completed and is being sent to you for your review, approval, and adoption. And finally, as I mentioned, the comprehensive plan, which is long awaited, has been completed. It will be released for public comment shortly before being sent to the council for your review and adoption later this summer. Council members, thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to our combined efforts towards a continued bright future for St. Joseph County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Baxmeyer. Next up, any report from any council special committee? Seeing none, we'll move to first readings. Mr. Murphy, will you read the first one, please?
Bill number 59-24, Taxpayer Protection and Transparency Ordinance. Petitioners, Mrs. Drake and Mr. Root.
Bill number 59-24 is assigned to the Budget and Administration Committee.
Bill number 61-24, an ordinance to vacate a public way or public place located wholly within the unincorporated portion of St. Joseph County. Petitioner, Condo Properties LLC.
Bill number 61-24 is assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee.
Bill number 62-24, an ordinance amending and supplementing Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 154, Planning and Zoning of the St. Joseph County Code as amended for properties located at plus or minus 3.4 acres south of the intersection of Brick Road and State Road 23 Highway from O, Office District to B, Business District. Petitioners, Insignia LLC.
Bill number 62-24 is assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee.
Bill number 63-24, an ordinance of the St. Joseph County Council amending Title 15, Chapter 154, Land Usage of the St. Joseph County Code to revise the use permissions and development standards for large-scale solar energy systems, renewable energy systems. Petitioner, St. Joseph County Area Plan Commission.
Bill number 63-24 is assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee.
Bill number 64-24, a resolution determining that the qualifications for an economic revitalization area have been met and confirming resolution of the St. Joseph County Council declaring an area of that county to be an economic revitalization area, confirming. Petitioner, Amazon Data Services, Inc.
Bill 64-24 is assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee.
Bill number 66-24, St. Joseph County Handbook Revision. Petitioner, St. Joseph County Commissioners.
Bill number 66-24 is assigned to the Budget and Administration Committee. That concludes our first readings for tonight. Next up is resolutions. Will you please read our first resolution, Mr. Murphy?
Bill number 60-24, a resolution of the County Council of St. Joseph County, Indiana, approving an agreement extending the St. Joseph County Housing Consortium and authorizing the execution thereof. Petitioner, St. Joseph County Council.
Petitioner.
Good evening. My name is Liz Meredith. I'm Chief Neighborhoods Officer with the City of South Bend's Department of Community Investment. This resolution before you authorizes the President of the County Commissioners to execute documents to renew the St. Joseph County Housing Consortium under an interlocal agreement that's between the St. Joseph County, City of South Bend, and the City of Mishawaka. The consortium was established in 1991 to receive federal home program dollars from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the purpose of the home grant is to provide housing to low to moderate income households. Since the consortium was established, more than $30 million in home funds have been received and gone towards housing in St. Joseph County. This includes rehabbing existing homes and apartments, building new homeowner and rental units, as well as home buyer assistance, like supporting Habitat for Humanity efforts in Mishawaka. The consortium board is structured so that each jurisdiction provides 2 members to the board, and the City of South Bend Department of Community Investment staffs the consortium. The current interlocal agreement expires at the end of this year, and the new agreement extends the consortium for an additional 3 years with an automatic renewal provision thereafter, but includes the right to not participate. On behalf of the Housing Consortium, I respectfully request favorable consideration of this resolution. We
Thank
can
you. Any
answer
questions from the council for the petitioner? Mr. Catanzarite.
I'm sorry, ma'am, your name Elizabeth, is that correct?
Liz, yeah,
Liz,
that's fine.
Is there any breakdown as to, you mentioned the dollar amount of $30 million for St. Joseph County. That's all jurisdictions combined, I presume.
Correct.
Is there a breakdown by jurisdiction, like unincorporated St. Joe County, City of South Bend, City of Mishawaka?
I don't currently have that breakdown. Generally speaking, we receive about $1 million of home funds every year. This year, it's slightly reduced because of budget reductions at the federal level related to home grants, so it's about $900,000. We do use a request for proposals process for applicants to submit proposals that are reviewed, and based on that, that's how we select which are funded. In recent years, the majority of the projects are in the city of South Bend and Mishawaka. We haven't received proposals for the unincorporated county.
Okay.
But in the past, there have been other projects in, for example, North Liberty, New Carlisle.
Okay. So somebody would need to submit an application to your organization
Correct,
to get funds if they were an unincorporated county that would
correct.
provide affordable housing.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's, I guess to follow up on Mr. Catanzarite's question, what's the mechanism of getting that word out, not only to South Bend and Mishawaka, but throughout the incorporated parts of the county?
So we release the request for proposals, and we do notify anybody who's interested about funding to support low-mod income housing. We do put them on a list to let them know when that the proposal is available. It's also published that there's notification that when it is available.
Just curious, thank you.
President Wright.
Mr. Schetzel.
In your description of what you do, you mentioned that most of the funds go to projects in Mishawaka and South Bend. Can you tell us about a project outside of those two cities? Or give us an idea of what kind of funds are spent outside of those two cities?
Yes, so as I mentioned, in the past number of years, we haven't received any proposals for unincorporated St. Joseph County, so there hasn't been any projects awarded. But in the past, I don't necessarily have the dollar amounts, but projects related to Shamrock Estates Senior Housing in North Liberty, as well as Prairie Village Apartments in New Carlisle, including lead paint assessments. Those were some of the projects that we did in more recent years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from the council? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve was made by Councilwoman Hess, seconded by Councilman Morton. Any further council discussion on this? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Schetzel?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Fig?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
President Root?
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 60-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Clerk, will you please read our next resolution?
Bill number 65-24, resolution of St. Joseph County Council waiving noncompliance of EVS Limited for failure to comply with the requirements of the deduction for rehabilitation of redevelopment of real property and economic revitalization area act. Petitioner EVS.
Petitioner.
Terry O'Brien, Economic Development Planner. My office is on the 11th floor of this building. If you recall, in 2022, EVS received a tax abatement for real property and personal property. To give you a little bit of background, EVS is a leader in the emergency vehicle safety products. They specialize in child safety seating products. Their tax abatement, which the council approved, allowed them to move out of the Sample Street Business Complex and move into a new building. At the time that they originally applied for their abatement, they indicated they were going to be able to retain their current employees and hire an additional 11. I'm happy to report that they exceeded that goal. As of today, they have had 12 new employees. Their original investment was going to be slightly under $3 million. They invested over $4 million on their construction project. The reason we're here today is because each year the council sends a reminder notice to the petitioners to submit documentation to be in compliance for their tax benefit. Because it was the first year that EVS was supposed to submit this information by the end of May, they failed to do so. They do not recall receiving this notification. Their accounting department obviously dropped the ball if they did or did not receive this notification. Upon receiving their tax bill, they immediately reached out to our department and asked for a remedy. The only remedy that is available is for the council to pass a resolution and grant a waiver for failure to provide sufficient documentation. Based upon their success, and they've done everything that they told us they were going to do, staff is recommending approval of this waiver. And I do have a representative from EBS here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions from the council for the petitioner or for EB?
Mr. Root?
Mr. Schetzel.
Thank you, sir. Have you put mechanisms in place to be sure that this doesn't happen again, and can you explain what those are?
Yes, sure. My name is Joe Dooley. I'm the CFO of the company, and I came before you a couple years ago myself. We are a really small company. When I started in 2017, we had 25 employees, 22 of which were working on the production floor and 3 in the office. Now we have 61 employees, and we have 10 people working in the office. So we've grown in sophistication with payroll, HR, accounting, finance. We switched accounting firms who can help us with this. We found a lawyer in Fort Wayne with Barrett McNagny, who's an expert on such things. There's no excuse. We could have done more research. We could have driven over here and asked if there's anything we need to do. But we sincerely appreciate the council's support and consideration.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I just comment, I think the growth is great, and, I think companies like yours with manufacturing, which we lost during the 70s and the 80s into the 90s, we need to bring that back, and I'm glad your company is here.
Yeah, we sell, we're happy to say we've hired 12 people since we moved into our building in June of 2023, and they're enjoying our new benefits. We sell our ambulance seats all over the world, and we want to sell even more.
Any further council questions for the petitioner? Hearing none. While we normally do not hold public hearings on resolutions, state statute says that in this particular case, we must hold a public hearing. So we are going to open Bill 65-24 to a public hearing. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in opposition? Public hearing on bill number 65-24 is now closed. May I have a motion on the bill, please?
Move for passage.
Second.
Motion to pass was made by Mr. Morton, seconded by Mr. Schetzel. Any further council discussion on this bill? Mr. Morton.
Sir, I would just like to say that I understand your predicament, and I appreciate your detailed explanation. And I guess the last thing I'd like to say is your new facility is magnificent. And it's a welcome addition to that area. And I just want to say thank you and congratulations on all your growth.
Thank you.
Any further council discussion on 65-24?
Mr. Root,
Mr. Catanzarite?
I would just say, we're not normally in the business of going back and changing our mind about tax abatements and making exceptions. However, having seen the evidence of the tax bills that they initially received that showed there was zero tax due, this is one exception where I think it was really confusing to a new company or to a company that was expanding to something new, and I wouldn't normally support us doing something like this, but in this case, I think it's worth the exception. I think they are a good company. I have used their product. They do make a good product, and Mr. Dooley explained you're shipping things all over the world, even to Israel, to the Hamas-Israeli conflict. So, I mean, it's a good product. It's recognized nationally, internationally, and I'll support it.
Thank you, Mr. Catanzarite. Any other council member? Seeing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Drake? Yes. Mr. Schetzel?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Fig?
Yes.
Ms. Hess? Yes. Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
President Root?
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 65-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. That concludes our resolutions for tonight. Next up is salary amendments. Clerk, will you please read Bill 58-24?
Bill number 58-24, an ordinance amending ordinance 107-23, the same being an ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the numbers of employees of St. Joseph County for the year 2024. Petitioner, prosecutor.
Committee report, please, Ms. Drake.
Bill number 5824 comes to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Petitioner?
Yes, I'm Bob Reisenhoover, Prosecutor's Office is on the 10th floor of this building. We're here tonight to ask for a salary amendment and an appropriation for the prosecutor's APS grant for the fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $469,133. This is the second year of a two-year continuation grant totaling $938,266. We're asking for your approval for this appropriation.
Any questions from the council for the petitioner?
President Root,
Mr. Schatzel?
just quickly for the sake of the public, an APS grant, is that a state or a federal grant?
This is a state grant.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Hearing none, we will move to public hearing on bill number 57-24. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing no one? Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, 58-24. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Anyone online? Public hearing on bill number 58-24 is now closed. May I have a motion, please?
Move for passage.
Second.
Motion to pass was made by Mr. Morton, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Any further council discussion on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Schetzel.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Mr. Fig.
Yes.
Ms. Hess. Mr. Catanzarite.
Yes.
Mr. Tanner.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Drake.
Yes.
President Root.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 58-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. That concludes our salary amendments tonight. Next up is a public hearing, public comment on fiscal matters. Mr. Murphy?
Bill number 57-24, an ordinance appropriating and transferring monies for the purpose herein specified for the several departments herein listed of the St. Joseph County government.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All items under fiscal matters were heard and discussed by the council at their committee meeting in June. And so we will open this up to a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to any of the items under 57-24 in support of them? Is there anyone online to speak in support? Seeing no one, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to any item of 57-24? Online? Seeing no one, the public hearing on bill number 57-24 is now closed. May I have a motion on the bill, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve was made by Councilman Fig, seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further council discussion on any item in 57-24? Seeing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Mr. Fig.
Yes.
Ms. Hess.
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite.
Yes.
Mr. Tanner.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Drake.
Yes.
Mr. Schetzel.
Yes.
President Root.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 57-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. That concludes our public hearing tonight on fiscal matters. Next up is land use planning. Mr. Murphy, will you please read bill 51-24?
Bill number 51-24, an ordinance amending and supplementing Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 154, Planning and Zoning of the St. Joseph County Code as amended for property located at 932 East McKinley Avenue from C Commercial District and R Single Family District to C Commercial District. Petitioners Dominic and Moretta Carraro Joint Revocable Trust.
Thank you. Committee report, please, Mr. Fig.
Yes, Mr. President, Bill number 51-24 comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Area plan?
Yes, this is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff with offices on the 11th floor of this building. So the petitioner is the owner of a split-zone parcel on the north side of McKinley, just to the west of Filbert. He would like to rezone the parcel from R Single Family District and C Commercial District to all C Commercial District, which would allow him to expand his commercial warehouse at the rear end of the parcel that's currently zoned R Single Family District. Everything to the east, west, and south of the property are industrial and commercial uses within the city of Mishawaka. There are single-family residential uses further to the north in the county, which front on Filbert. This is the property as viewed from McKinley currently, the proposed expansion area at the north portion of the property, and then looking west along McKinley, and then looking east along McKinley. Per the site plan, there's going to be a 20,000 square foot addition to the north of the existing commercial building, and then rear our hard surface that provides access to that addition. The Area Plan Commission found that the rezoning petition met all 5 of the criteria in state law. They found that it was consistent with the general usage in the area being commercial and industrial, and they felt that the type 2 landscaping that would be required along the north property line would protect those residential uses which are further to the north. Therefore, they sent it to you favorably, 7-0. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the council for area plan? Seeing none. Petitioner? Is the petitioner here? Come tell us what you want to do. Yep. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name's Jim Ulry, 51205 Maplewood Drive, Simonton Lake, Indiana. The Quarrel family has owned that property since way back when. They're just adding 20,000 square foot of cold storage, steel building, slab, additional warehouse for their current business.
Thank you. Any questions from the council for the petitioner? Hearing none, we will open the public hearing on bill number 51-24.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing no hands go up along the side, is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition? Anyone online wish to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public hearing on bill number 51-24 is now closed. May I have a motion on the bill, please?
Motion for passage.
Second.
Motion to pass was made by Mr. Catanzarite, seconded by Mr. Fig. Any further council discussions on the bill? Mr. Tanner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Fig, you've got it for sure. Yeah, we chimed in at the same time. But the only comment I was going to make on this, and it was brought up during committee, was that this is one of the few county parcels of land that actually have a city-based address, because there's a small parcel that fronts McKinley Avenue there. It is contiguous to all of the other commercial development in the area, and I'll be voting in favor of the change. Thank you.
Any other further council discussion on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Fig,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite,
Yes.
Mr. Tanner,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Schetzel,
Yes.
Mr. Morton,
Yes.
President Root.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 51-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Next up is 52-24
Do I read these
and
separately?
53-24. We were going to hold a combined public hearing on these two, but a separate vote.
Should I
If you'll
read
go
them-
ahead and read
should-
both of them, Mr.
Read them
Murphy.
together?
Yep.
Okay. Bill number 53-24, an ordinance amending and supplementing Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 154, Planning and Zoning of the St. Joseph County Code as amended for property located at 30500 U.S. Highway, unaddressed 40 plus or minus acre parcel abutting 30500 US 20 highway to the south and east, unaddressed 11 plus or minus acre parcel abutting said 40 plus or minus acre parcel to the west, unaddressed acre abutting acre to the east from A agricultural district to I industrial district. Petitioner Illinois Indiana Development Company LLC. And bill number 53-24, an ordinance approving the petition for a special use filed by the Illinois Indiana Development Company LLC and Chicago South Shore and South Bend Railroad to allow railroad switching and classification yard per section 154.319, property located at 30500 US Highway, unaddressed 40 plus or minus acre parcel abutting 30500 US 20 highway to the south and east, unaddressed 11 plus or minus acre parcel abutting said 40 plus or minus acre parcel to the west, unaddressed 35 point minus acre parcel to abutting said, a lot of abuttings, acre parcel to the east, unaddressed 2 point plus or minus acre parcel abutting said 35 plus or minus acre parcel to the east, 54231 Smilax Road and 30100 US Highway 20. Petitioner, Illinois Indiana Development Company, LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. May I get a committee report, please, on 5224 and 5324, Mr. Pegg?
Yes, Mr. President, both bills 52-24 and 53-24 comes to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Area Plan?
Thank you, Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So both of these bills are related to the same proposed project. The first is a rezoning from A agricultural district to I industrial. That's for the 4 parcels to the west that are highlighted in blue on the screen. And then the second bill is for a special use to allow a rail yard on all 7 parcels that are outlined in yellow. The 3 of those to the east are already zoned I industrial. So again, this is the rezoning portion of the property. Looking at the site currently, it is cultivated acreage with some wooded areas. To the north of the agriculturally zoned portion of the site, there appears to be one single-family home. And then further to the north across US 20, there are farmed parcels. To the north of the industrially zoned portion, there appears to be a contractor yard, a 3D printing shop, and a cell tower. Those are all zoned I industrial district. To the east, across Smilax, there is one single-family home, and then an agricultural parcel containing a single-family home. And then further to the south of that, on the east side of Smilax, are industrial uses zoned I industrial. To the south of the industrial, or the agriculturally zoned portion is Cleveland Cliffs, zone general industrial within the town of New Carlisle. And then to the south of the industrial zoned portion is Alcogen, which is currently zoned I industrial. Then to the west, there are some single-family homes that have frontage on US 20. To the rear of those parcels are larger agriculturally zoned parcels, all zoned A agricultural district. The proposed site is within the IEC core development area. Therefore, when those parcels are rezoned, they will become subject to the use prohibitions within the overlay. It's the site as it currently appears, the western portion looking south, eastern portion looking south from 20, portion is viewed from Smilax. The site plan submitted by the petitioner shows the area that would be covered by the special use. The ultimate intention of this special use is to allow for one or more users to be able to use the existing South Shore Freight Line, which runs along the south of the subject property for the shipment of goods, materials, potentially related to industrial uses in the area, agricultural uses. Really, it's just a special use to allow them access to that existing rail so that they can load and unload in that property. The site plan shows that access is proposed from US 20 and from Smilax. Any access on the US 20 would be subject to NDOT approval. whereas any access on the Smilax would be subject to county engineer approval. Landscaping on the proposed site plan is well in excess of what would be required in the I-Industrial and the IEC overlay district. They're showing type 2 full landscape screening, which is 4 evergreens per 30 feet of lot line or equivalent level of screening along every abutting property which is agricultural, including the one that contains a single-family home. And then they're also providing that along the entire US 20 frontage, which should provide excellent screening from that right-of-way. And then along the Smilax frontage, they're providing 1 tree per 40 feet and then 1 shrub per 20, which again is in excess of what they would be required to provide. Turning to the state law criteria, the Area Plan Commission found that all 5 criteria were met. Looking at the comprehensive plan, they found that it would serve goals related to ensuring that there are suitable areas for future industrial development, as well as that industrial uses should have access to municipal water, wastewater, and sanitary services. In this case, when it's developed, it will have service by South Bend Sewer and New Carlisle Water, as with the rest of the IEC overlay projects. Looking at current conditions and character, the fact that the property has over 1,700 feet of rail frontage of existing freight rail makes it desirable for this specific rail use, also being in the heart of a new industrial development with this rail makes that an obvious use for the property. Turning to most desirable use, they found that industrial uses are most desirable in this area in light of the available utilities and the road improvements that are underway to support those uses. Conservation of property values. The type 2 landscaping proposed would protect the limited residential uses in the area. It's not expected that this use would have any adverse impact on agricultural or industrial uses in the vicinity. Finally, responsible development and growth. It was found that it was responsible to allow additional uses within a planned industrial development area where utility extensions are planned to support that development. As a result, the rezoning of those 4 parcels came to you with a favorable recommendation by a vote of 7-0. And then looking at the special use to allow for the rail yard for all 7 parcels, they likewise found that that met the 4 criteria. Turning to the first one, they found that it would not be injurious to public health, safety, comfort, community moral standards, and general welfare. There will be substantial setbacks that are found in the industrial district from all rights-of-way and all of the property lines abutting agricultural, and furthermore, that landscape screening should help to limit the visual impact on the public from US 20. They also found that it would not injure or adversely affect the use of the adjacent area or the property value therein, again, due to the heightened setbacks from agricultural and residential uses and the landscape screening. They found that the proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district in which it is located, in that this area has been targeted for industrial growth, and this use will provide just another means of transportation for goods in and out of that area for both industrial and potentially agricultural goods. Finally, they found that it was compatible with the recommendations of the St. Joseph County Comprehensive Plan, which designate this area for industrial growth. They did make their favorable recommendation 7-0, subject to 3 conditions. One of those being the approval of the rezoning from the A Agricultural District to the I Industrial District. So if the first bill is passed, it'll take care of that. They also requested a written commitment requiring a traffic study per INDOT and county engineer requirements, just to determine what additional strain this use might be on US 20 and potentially Smilax, and requiring the developer to finance any of those improvements that might be required. Finally, it was subject to a written commitment obligating the developer to provide that landscaping that was shown on the site plan, just to ensure that that happens as proposed. The rezoning also came to you 7-0, favorable recommendation. At the combined public hearing before APC, 1 individual spoke in favor, while 3 spoke in remonstrance. There was some concern amongst the remonstrators that this could become something of a large intermodal transit facility. The petitioner pointed out that the clearance between the South Shore Freight rail line and the power wires above it really wouldn't allow for that type of use. Other than that, favorable recommendations for both 7-0. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the council on either Bill 52 or 5324?
President Root,
Mr. Schetzel?
when you said type 2 screening, can you describe what type 2 screening looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So it would require them to plant 4 evergreens per every 30 feet of that lot line, and they have to plant them in a double staggered row. So there'd be 2 there and 2 there, essentially, per every 30 feet. So it really, for those lengths of lot lines, it really results in a substantial amount of evergreen plantings.
So the intention is that the evergreens would grow to the point that they would cover that 30 feet?
Correct, you're absolutely correct.
And then you said substantial setbacks. Can you be more specific?
Yeah, absolutely. So any industrial development, when it is adjacent to agricultural, a 50-foot setback is required.
Thank you.
Any further council questions?
President Root,
For area plan, Mr. Thomas?
can you describe, Sean, when you say intermodal, can you get a little more in detail? What's the definition of that, intermodal facility?
Yeah.
Most
so-
people don't know what that is, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. So the concern there was that it would kind of cater to semi to rail sort of transit, wherein the entire shipping containers are lifted off of the trucks and then placed onto the rail cars. So it's not going to be something of that intensity. The petitioner can speak better to it than I can, but I mean, it's going to be the rail cars, which are substantially not as tall as the intermodal versions, would just be loaded on or potentially unloaded on site.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the council for area plan? Hearing none. Petitioner? Please state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Stephen Studer. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Krieg DeVault with office at 4101 Edison Lakes Parkway, Mishawaka, 46544. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Illinois-Indiana Development Company, the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Railroad, which I'll refer to as South Bend Freight. With me this evening also is a representative from the South Shore Freight, Mr. Tony Kevek, I'm going to say this right, Kevkachis, and along with Krista Welch of Avonmarsh. We are seeking, as Mr. Klein pointed out, your approval on rezoning 4 parcels from agricultural to industrial, and together with 3 other parcels already zoned industrial for special use variance to allow a switching and classification yard. Let me just answer the first question that Mr. Thomas already raised, is intermodal. That's what you see on Class 1 railroads where you see the double deckers. We can't do that. We're restricted. We don't carry any product like that. The line wouldn't let us do that anyway. So there was concern, I think, by one of the demonstrators that we were going to have this big intermodal yard that you see in Chicago. We're not available. We can't do that. We can't even run those types of cars. As Mr. Klein pointed out, this comes to you with a favorable recommendation of the staff, also unanimous recommendation of the Area Plan Commission, together with a Land Use Committee favorable recommendation. The property is located in the overlay district, so it's subject to all of the restrictions that this council has previously imposed on these industrial properties. For reference, as Mr. Klein points out, to the south of us is the Cleveland Cliffs property, the old Iron Tech Iron Coat. To the east is what we refer to as Unifract. I think it's now Stemco, doing business as Unifracs. What's interesting, I think, is the IEC area management plan, which is referenced in the staff report, frequently cites rail access as one of the key economic strengths of the core development area, and specifically actually mentions the South Shore Freight Line. So we're actually coming to the party here that the management plan had suggested they needed to see for continued economic development. With the GM battery plant, the Amazon data center, and other development that's going to come out in this area, the use of rail will also probably decrease the use of heavy truck traffic, because instead of having all that truck traffic come through New Carlisle and other areas, they can now carry by bulk, and the trucks can pick it up at this area and move east. Most of the traffic from the South Shore Freight goes west to Chicago, so that's going to eliminate a lot of truck traffic. At least that's our goal. I would certainly be happy to reiterate all the state standards for both the special use permit and for the rezoning, but I think Mr. Klein has identified those, and they're also in the record. Otherwise, I would only say this, is that the South Shore Freight has agreed to all the staff's commitments, including that the property be rezoned first, which hopefully you'll give us your approval of that. And secondly, that we will commit to a traffic study if requested by either NDOT or by the county engineer. And third, that we are going to commit to the landscaping that we set forth in our site plan. And as Mr. Klein pointed out, that's far in excess of what's required in the typical overlay district project. So we're actually doing more than would otherwise be required. So I request therefore your approval for rezoning the 4 parcels from ag to industrial, and also that you approve the special use variance to allow all 7 parcels be used for a switching and classification yard. I'm happy to entertain any questions as well.
Any questions from the council for the petitioner?
President Root.
Mr. Schetzel?
So once completed, how many spurs are we talking about going into this property?
As I understand, just one.
Just
It's
one.
just one simple spur off the line. You know, this line's been running through there. The South Shore has been running over 100 years in this area, and they haven't added a lot of spurs on this area, and there hasn't been need to, because there's not been the development out there. I think there's just been one other spur that was run, I think, to an Omni plan. I'm not sure about that, but this would be just a single spur running on the west side of the property.
Okay.
And they own that property on the west side of that, so surrounded by property they own.
Okay. And then the primary user would be GM Samsung, or?
We don't know. Truthfully, we don't have any particular user in mind. We really can't market the property until we get the approvals. You can't go out and say, we're going to do this, or we don't want to engage in those negotiations. But whatever users we have will have to be permitted by the IEC overlay. And if they're not permitted by the IEC overlay, we'd have to come back to this council to get their approval. So there's protections on both ends there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions for the council, for Mr. Tanner?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Studer, as I understand it, the areas that are depicted right now on the screen where the type 2 screening is going to be, some of that, especially on the southwest side, is predominantly farm or forested land, but it also represents where some residences exist today. To that end, I'm sure those individuals would be interested to know what kind of hours of operation would exist for a facility like this. Again, you don't have an operator yet.
Right.
But I'm sure they would literally like some level of peace of mind for what kind of hours of operations that you would allow, or in this particular case, your client would allow for a facility like this.
Right. So the IEC has limits on hours of operation, et cetera, so that we would have to comply with those. We've also had discussions with the neighbors as well, and they haven't expressed any concerns here. One of the reasons I think South Shore Freight decided to do the extra landscaping was to accommodate those concerns, right? So over time, that'll build up. And as we said, we're also doing it all the way along US 20, which is probably not necessary, but we've agreed with the staff that would be a nice thing to do. And so they've been very amenable to all the suggestions of the staff. But we've had conversations with some of the homeowners. Candidly, some of them might be interested in selling the property over time. They recognize that this is an industrial area, and it was when they moved there. So hours of operation will be limited. And again, once we have a specific user, they'll also have to comply with the IEC overlay district restrictions.
Thank you.
Mr. Morton?
Mr. Studer, not so much a question, but just a comment. Just like to commend you and in the negotiating process of going above and beyond what's called for as far as the buffer. I think that's huge, and I think that has a lot to do with maybe lack of remonstration from the neighbors. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. It starts with a good client. Thank you.
Any further council questions for the petitioner? Hearing none, we will open to public hearing on 5224 and 53-24. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
I know, don't look so shocked.
I know it. I'm about to faint. I'm just kidding.
Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. I was the remonstrator that the gentleman was speaking of. I do want to correct one thing he said. He said there would be one rail spur running into there. What Mr. Lepinitis, the attorney, said at the APC was they didn't know how many spurs would be running into there because they didn't know how many business customers they would have, and they couldn't estimate how many spurs there would be. But he intimated that it would be more than one. Not that that matters. I support this. Only reason I was against it because I was the one who I made the trip over to Elwood, Illinois to look at that intermodal nightmare over there. The only thing they had over there that we don't have here is a river where they were unloading the double stack trailers from barges on the trucks and onto the road. And we were stuck in a Chevy Tahoe in the middle of nothing but trucks where we just felt like an ant. Scary. When the attorney explained, I can never say his last name, Lepinitis, explained and took care of the concerns I had about it becoming an intermodal, the crossing of the electric lines of the South Shore and the Norfolk Southern regular rail lines, the problems that caused made me feel, it comforted me. And I am, the more stuff you can get on trains, the less truck traffic you have. And right now, anybody who's aware of me the last few days knows that I'm fighting the truck traffic over there using truck-restricted roads. And I say the more of them we can get out of the area, the better. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of 52 or 53? Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition to 52 or 53? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the council. Oh, yeah, and please sign in on the clipboard behind there.
Can I
as
do
well.
that after?
Yes.
Charlotte Wolf, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. And I guess I do agree with Dan, Mr. Crusoe, in the preference for rail versus truck. But with all due respect to Mr. Crusoe and Mr. Studer and his client, I just want to state my, excuse me, opposition to extended domino effect conversion of agricultural land to industrial. And several people, including Mr. Klein, stated that this is a continuance of, this is land targeted for, within the area targeted. And in no way is the 2002 Comprehensive Land Use Plan indicating that this is going to be an industrial area or that it is targeted. In fact, it is, to my knowledge of an examination of the plan, it is described as prime farmland. Prime farmland is where you grow food. You don't continue to domino effect changing the zoning from agriculture to industrial, and this project would make that really more cost effective because you've already got this rail yard here. And like I said, I am in favor of rail versus truck, but if it's just going to mean the continued erosion of our agricultural land, and the next neighbor is going to say, well, I'm right next to industrial, so I need to sell to industrial, and the next neighbor, and I've already said at previous meetings, I appreciate the overlay and the restrictions there. I think they should be even stronger. I just hate to see our agricultural land converted to industrial. And the fact that you had 3 remonstrators, I don't really care what the project is. What I've learned from coming to these meetings is we had only 3 remonstrators. So that means everybody else in the county was in favor of that? No, it just means 3 people took the time and effort to look at this project, or look at the project, understand what is going on, understand the bigger picture, and then come to the meeting and speak about it. So that was 3 people. Yeah, well, there's a lot of other people who are concerned about the erosion of agricultural land to industrial. Thank you.
Public outbursts will not be tolerated tonight. If it happens again, we will have the bailiff remove those who participate in that. Please, Ms. Wolf, I need you to please sign in on the clipboard. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Eli Wolf. I live at 27642 State Road 23 in North Liberty. Actually not too far from where this is, just on the other side of the Crumbstone area. So I want to comment on the same thing. We have already lost dramatic agriculture space with the incoming factories. This would be further destruction of our agriculture. And with other projects in the county is losing its greatest asset. And things like factories and technology may be a futuristic concept, but things like agriculture will never not be necessary. We will always need food. And again, yes, this is a small space of land, but it will become a large space. In more years to come, they will return for more land. And this may be a small space, but it is surrounded by agriculture. We already have caustic chemicals coming in, hazardous materials. What about all the oils that will be coming through with the rail yard? Petroleum-based products. What will the rain runoff do to the agriculture and the health of the people around us? I know they have stated that it should not, but by the time we know if it does, it will be too late. So the question becomes, do we know what we're doing now? By doing this, yes, we lose a small piece of land, but do we lose a big piece of the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public hearing on Bills 52 and 53-24 are now closed. Would the petitioner like an opportunity to rebut the opposition?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a clarification. When I said there's one spur line, that's what we anticipate. We don't have a user, so the line might look differently than what's on the site plan. We had to provide something for the site plan that goes along the west side. That's our best guess as to any particular user, but I don't want to suggest that that's exactly what it's going to look like. That's what we anticipate it's going to look like. You know, depending on the users, it might change a little farther to the east, a little farther to the west. But it's not going to go any farther north probably, but it might jog to the right. So I just want to make clear that when I said this is the site plan, this is the anticipated site plan without having any users in mind. So I just want to make sure that I didn't misspeak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Catanzarite.
Can I ask Mr. Studer a couple of questions?
Yep, Mr. Studer.
Mr. Studer, how long has South Shore Freight owned this land?
Well, over a dozen.
Approximately.
Over a dozen years, I believe, they've
Dozen
owned
years.
this land, yeah.
Are they normally engaged in the process of hazmat chemical hauling? Or more freight?
More freights, you know, whatever runs along the main line, the South Shore Freight Line. This is not a Class 1, this is a short line railroad, as you know. So they don't have the same level of they can't carry the large intermodals, they can't carry a large, they're limited, and if you look at the map and your materials, they're actually just a short line railroad, so they don't have all those heavy industrial customers that a lot of Class 1s have. So, yeah, I assume they do carry some hazardous materials, but of course, that's going to be regulated by the Federal Railroad Department, so, but again, this is not going to be intermodal, it doesn't have the capability of doing that. This is going to be basically for bringing bulk materials, it could be sand, it could be whatever it might be, and offloading them onto trucks so that the trucks aren't coming through the other way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Studer. We will have a separate vote on 52 and 53, so may I have a motion on 52-24?
Motion to pass favorably.
Second.
Motion to pass was made by Mr. Schetzel, seconded by Ms. Hess. Any further council discussion on 52-24? Being none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Schetzel?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Fig?
Yes.
President Root?
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 52-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. May I have a motion on 53-24?
Move for approval.
Second.
Do you want to make that?
Motion to approve was made by
Sorry.
Ms. Hess, seconded by Mr. Morton.
Do you want to make it subject to the written commitments?
Yes.
A commitment requiring a traffic study per county engineer and requirements, and then one requiring the landscaping shown on the site plan submitted.
Move for approval with the written commitments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to pass with the written commitment made by Councilwoman Hess, seconded by Councilman Morton. Any further council discussion on 53-24? Seeing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Catanzarite,
Yes.
Mr. Tanner,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Schetzel,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Mr. Fig,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
President Root.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 53-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Our next bill is bill number 56-24.
Bill number 56-24, an ordinance requiring A100 Apartments LP to make payments in lieu of taxes on lot number 1 of the proposed plat of AFA 100 Generations Drive minor subdivision, parcel number to be determined. Petitioner A100 Apartments.
Committee report, please, Mr. Fig.
Yes, Mr. President, bill number 56-24 comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Terry O'Brien, Economic Development Planner. My office is on the 11th floor of this building. We're here to talk about Phase 2 of a project that began in 2022. In 2022, the same developer built a 51-unit low-income senior apartment building, and this council granted the same petition approval of a project with a 50% tax exemption. The developer, based upon current occupancy and a current waiting list, would now like to develop Phase 2 of this project. Phase 2 is a 72-unit apartment building, which is going to cost approximately $20 million. If this exemption is approved, it will help serve the low-income seniors and allow the developer to offer senior below-market rental rates in accordance to HUD guidelines. Staff requests council approval of the resolution and approval of the pilot agreement. The petitioner is online to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Petitioner? Is there any question from the council for Mr. O'Brien? Petitioner, please go ahead.
This is Doug Klingensmith. The address is 11184 Hauser Drive, Lakeview, Ohio, 43331. Wanted to thank Terry for advancing this legislation and for the entire council for their consideration and approval. As a developer of only senior affordable housing, HEPA has built about 100 facilities across the country, and this is the continuation of the commitment of our organization to the state of Indiana. We're actually located in Fishers, Indiana, and again, appreciate all your time and effort and Terry's help on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the council for the petitioner? Being none, we'll move to public hearing on bill number 56-24. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone online? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition? Anyone online wish to speak in opposition? Public hearing on bill number 56-24 is now closed. May I have a motion, please?
Move for passage.
Second.
Motion to pass was made by Mr. Morton, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Any further council discussion on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Tanner,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Drake, Mr. Schetzel,
Yes.
Mr. Morton,
Yes.
Mr. Fig,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite,
Yes.
President Root.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 56-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Our next bill is bill number 54-24.
Bill number 54-24, a resolution of the St. Joseph County Council declaring a portion of St. Joseph County an economic revitalization area pursuant to IC 6-1.1-12.1-1 at sequence confirming. Petitioner HB Old Cleveland Partners LLC.
Committee report, please, Mr. Fig.
Yes, Mr. President, bill number 54-24 comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien.
With your, Terry O'Brien, Economic Development Planner, office on the 11th floor. With your permission, I'd like to combine this bill with the next bill. It's the same project. We just happen to have one petitioner being the landowner, which would receive the real property, and one petitioner, which would be the tenant, which would be receiving the personal property. So if we could combine those two, it'd make it a little simpler.
Is there any objection from the council to combining the two into one public hearing? No, we will do that then. Go ahead.
All right, the petitioners are two well-known regional companies. First, the Holiday Group, which is going to be the building owner, and second, Lippert Components, which will be the tenant in the building. The petitioners are seeking a 10-year real property tax abatement and a 5-year personal property tax abatement. The proposed building will be located on Old Cleveland Road. The building is going to be approximately 600,000 square feet. It will be used as a warehouse and distribution center for the tenant's aftermarket products. Lippert will be the tenant, and they will be investing approximately $5 million in build-out. The cost of the building for Holiday Group is approximately $40 million. To tell you a little bit about Lippert and what Lippert does in St. Joseph County, they currently occupy two facilities, one on Sample Street and one on South Bend and one on Burkett Street in Mishawaka. In those two facilities, they employ approximately 500 employees. None of those employees are anticipated to transfer to this new facility. This new facility will be hiring new employees to the area. They're anticipating hiring approximately 100 new employees. The employees in the warehouse will average approximately $21 an hour. The employees within the office and management positions will receive compensation of approximately $38 an hour. I have representatives from Lippert and from Holiday here to answer any additional questions that you might have.
Are there any questions from the council for Mr. O'Brien?
President Reed.
Schatzel?
Thank you, sir. I may have just missed it. How many employees are we adding to the economy here?
100.
100. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. O'Brien? Petitioners, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Paul Fair with Holiday Properties, address at 3454 Douglas Road in South Bend. Thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you again this evening. This is an exciting project for us, and as you've heard before, it's a development of an industrial facility for Lippert. They will be the long-term tenant in the building, and so one point I want to make right off the bat is we will be the owner and developer of the building, but as the tenant, Lippert is responsible for payment of the real property taxes. This benefit really goes to them as the operator and job creator of this project. The site is located on Old Cleveland Road, directly south of General Stamping and Metalworks on 52 acres. The building will be roughly 600,000 square feet. It'll be a precast concrete facility, so it'll be attractive and a functional facility for Lippert to operate. There'll be approximately 20,000 square feet of office that's built out within the facility, so they will have substantial office presence in addition to warehouse. The project overall will cost approximately $40 million and an investment in just the construction aspect of the project, and then Lippert will be on top of that. Currently, we are paying just over $1,600 in property taxes on this site, so it will be a substantial increase despite the abatement in the taxes that are paid as a result of this project. And I have Braxton Cave from Lippert with me. I'm just going to ask him to speak to their operation and the critical nature of the tax abatement and kind of the overall economic feasibility as they're looking to make significant investment. So.
Yep. Braxton Cave, 408 South Burkett Avenue, Mishawaka. As stated before, this is an incredible growth opportunity for Lippert as a whole, especially with our aftermarket division. We currently are operating an aftermarket division in Mishawaka. This is an addition to that. We're really excited, as I said before, to put a stake in the ground and continue our growth as a trusted partner of the community.
Any questions from the council for the petitioners? Hearing none, we will move to a public hearing on bill number 54-24 and 55-24. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of either one of these bills? Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing no one, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to either 54 or 55? Anyone online? The public hearing on Bill 54-24 and 55-24 is now closed. May I have a motion on 54-24?
Move for passage.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Morton, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Any further council discussion on 54? Seeing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Schetzel?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Fig?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
President Root?
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 54-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Bill number 55-24. May we have a motion on that one?
Motion for passage.
Second.
Motion passed made by Mr. Catanzarite, seconded by Mr. Fig. Any further council discussion on 55-24? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Schetzel?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Fig?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
President Root?
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 55-24 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Next up, and our last one in land use and planning, bill number 42-24. Mr. Murphy?
I'm sorry. Bill number 42-24, a resolution of the St. Joseph County Council declaring a portion of St. Joseph County an economic revitalization area pursuant to IC 6-1.1-12.1-1 ET sequence declaring petitioner Amazon Data Services, Inc.
Committee report, please, Mr. Fig.
Yes, Mr. President, bill number 42-24 comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Shalio?
Mr. President, members of the council, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Bill Shalio, County Economic Development Director, part of the Department of Infrastructure Planning and Growth with offices on the 7th and 11th floor. Here today before you for declaratory resolution for real property tax abatement for the Amazon Web Services or Amazon Data Services project. Resolution, or bill number 4424 is the declaratory resolution for this project. The abatement request before you today from petitioner Amazon Data Services is a real property tax abatement on its proposed $11 billion capital expenditure. The petitioner is seeking a 50% abatement for 10 years on the data shells only that are proposed as part of this project. Support or auxiliary buildings will not receive property tax abatement as part of this request. No personal property abatement is also being requested. This type of project is a little different. Personal property in a general sense is usually personal property only, but because this is a data center project, the personal property is split between personal property and what they call enterprise technology. And so enterprise technology, personal property is different. It's more the computers, it's the servers, it's all the equipment related to the project. So a lot more of the personal property cost is related to the enterprise side of things. And we'll be talking a little bit about enterprise technology exemption in this presentation. The paperwork for this project was filed back in April, continued to May as the petitioner changed the name from Razor 5 to Amazon Data Services. The SB1 documentation has been filed with the council and is updated. And the abatement request would be for IEC sites 2, 3, and 4. Here on the map is IEC Site 2. This is north of the General Motors site, generally located at the southwest corner of Edison and Larison. IEC Site 3 and 4 are south of State Road 2. I draw the red line in the map kind of as a demarcation line between 3 and 4. The red line actually represents a gas pipeline that runs east-west through the site, and it's kind of a divisible point on the site. The abatement resolution before you today is the declaratory resolution. So what we're looking to do is establish the economic revitalization area and then set the term of years for the establishment of the ERA. Assuming, or if this passes this step of the process, the confirming resolution was filed earlier, had first reading, was assigned to Land Use Committee. That would establish the percentage part of the abatement of the project. Declaratory resolution, again, for this project, would be to establish the ERA, or the Economic Revitalization Area. The ARA would consist of Site 2 and Site 3 and 4, so the northern site and the southern site. The maps are attached to the resolution. And then we'd also look to set the term of years for the establishment of the ERA. And again, what we're looking to do here, because of the rolling construction nature of this project, we're not building just one building. We're building several buildings on this campus. And so as we look to build out the site, it will take a number of years. And so as the first building would start, actually 4 buildings are soon to be under construction on the site, that 10-year window runs pretty quickly. If it takes a number of years to build out the site, it may take up to 50 years for that last building to receive the full 10 years of abatement. So at year 39 or year 40 of the build-out cycle, then it would have the 10 years. So that's why we're asking for the 50 years. A little longer than normal, but it's a bigger project than normal too. And again, the term of years is needed due to the extended construction cycle. The maps in your packet show IEC Site 2, the northern site, and IEC Site 3 and 4, the southern site. And so where we are in the process, again, based on the declaratory resolution, once the SB1 is filed, there's 5 finding requirements that are required to be found as part of approval of a declaratory resolution. So I'd just like to run through each of these and talk and maybe provide some additional information about the project. The first finding requirement is whether the estimate of the value of the redevelopment or rehab or new agriculture improvements is reasonable for the projects of that nature. The AWS project, we've had a lot of conversation about this. Again, this is not a single data center project. This is a data center campus that consists of multiple buildings over multiple sites. The multiple data center shells versus a single building really are kind of a distinguishing factor of this project. Again, the projected investment for capital expenditure is $11 billion. We could estimate that could exceed that over that period of year build-out. The AWS has purchased both sites, 2 and 3 and 4, and we anticipate 4 general contractors will be needed to build the development on sites IEC 2 and IEC sites 3 and 4. So a lot of construction activity, a lot of construction jobs associated with those projects. IEC Site 2, the northern site, approximately 230 acres. There'll be 4 support buildings on the site. Those buildings vary in different sizes, have different purposes. And then at this point in time, there's 7 data shells that are proposed for the site. Each data shell is approximately 216,000 square feet. And then there's the potential to add 2 more data center shells once there's a natural gas or NIPSCO gas line that runs along the east side of the site. If that's able to be relocated, that would then allow for 2 additional shells to be built. I want to pass out some pictures real quick. I have the
Careful with that trip line.
It almost got me earlier.
I forgot that was there.
Thank you.
I would note the pictures that you'll see on the screen are the same pictures that you see in the packet. We had asked, there really hasn't been an opportunity yet to show what the data center buildings or some of the campus buildings will look like. Unfortunately, when you ask landscape architects or engineers sometimes for site renderings, they give you the pretty picture. What I really wanted was the stuff behind the trees and the fence. So this is a rendering of what, this would be looking south into the site from Edison Road. A lot of landscaping. Abby and her team, Abby and Sean, have worked extensively with the AWS team. So there'll be plantings, then there'll be security fencing, and the buildings will sit back behind. There's a little bit better rendering of the data center buildings back behind. All the buildings have a color palette. All the buildings will be the same color with the variations, with the different textures and undulations within the building. This is one of the auxiliary buildings. This is a campus logistics building. This would be one of the buildings that would sit out front. If you're a visitor to the site, this is one of the buildings that you would come to as part of your campus visit. This is the campus administration building. Again, part of a consistent color palette, a lot of landscaping on the site. And then this is the access control building. So this is the secure point as you go through and into the site. Again, a lot of landscaping. Again, a lot of native landscaping, a lot of coordination on the landscaping and the color palette to mesh well with that. As we continue these processes, you've got at least two more times I'm in front of you. We'll continue to have more pictures, more renderings, and more site plans to show and share with the project. IEC Site 3, again, the building styles that you saw on the north site will be reflected here also. IEC Site 3, much larger site. Again, south of State Road 2, 640 acres in total, 290 acres for SBN 200 or IEC Site 3. 4 support buildings, 9 data shells are proposed for this site. So this would be the site north of the red line. And then as part of the intersection improvements at 2 and Larison, there'll be a frontage road that will then ultimately connect to the site and then could extend all the way to Navistar. So a great way for Navistar to keep its truck traffic off of State Road 2, going through the interchange or intersection to get out to the road. The second finding requirement is the estimate of the number of individuals who will be employed as part of the project. Will employment be retained? This is obviously a new project, but is it reasonably expected to meet the results of the project? Again, what we would talk about first, with an $11 billion investment, it's going to take a lot of people to run this facility. There's 400 permanent full-time jobs that would be part of the project, an additional 600 employees, up to 600 employees, so 1,000 employees total due to the site that would work on the site. The blue badge employees are the Amazon actual employees. To meet the enterprise technology exemption, there have to be certain wages with the project. Those wages have to exceed 125% of the average county wage. Average county wage right now at $24.59. So the average wage for those workers would start, or the floor would be at $30.74. The additional employees would be third-party contracted employees, be part of the site mix as far as employee numbers. So for that kind of investment, 1,000 new employees and 1,000 new jobs, again, we think that's kind of the front end of this. This doesn't account for all the construction workers, all of the other laborers that are part of this project, and all the indirect jobs that are associated with this project. The third finding is whether the estimate of the annual salaries of these individuals to be employed can be expected to be a result of this new construction. And again, I hate to use the same slide, but again, the wages are such based on the jobs created, certainly would tend to meet that requirement. The fourth finding is whether any other benefits about which information was requested or benefits that can be reasonably expected as part of this project. I want to show a little data shell math, so to speak. I think we talked in committee, what is the value of the non-abated site? What is the value of the abated site? So I just want to, there are stars, there are caveat marks here. Steve Dalton suggested that we make sure we caveat this. This is based on the SB1 numbers and then based on the assessment projection. So the real property without abatement would generate about $2.3 million a year. Again, what we're proposing is a 50% abatement for 10 years, so that would generate about $1.15 million a year. Personal property is estimated based on the SB1 to be about $589,000. And then the enterprise tax exemption, the enterprise personal property, if you will, is about 8.8 million. So what we're proposing is an exemption at the 85% level, which would generate at the high point 1.4 million as it works through the cycle. And I guess I want to clarify that a little bit. The enterprise tax exemption is a exemption that the council alone can grant. So this is done by resolution, and this will come to you here in one of the next couple of meetings. And the enterprise exemption is, again, related to that specific personal property that's technology related. And so, because the council has the ability to set that exemption, you can set it at whatever term of years you would choose to set it. What we've seen based on other projects in the state, and we don't have the new numbers on the Microsoft project in LaPorte, so we haven't been able to factor those in yet. But as we look at the computer equipment is typically replaced on a 6-year cycle. So when you think of buying personal property, the personal property depreciates to a point. And so that's reflected in the sawtooth pattern. So that the sawtooths are the 6-year cycle of purchase to depreciation. It's anticipated that these ADS data centers will go through the equipment a lot faster. So that cycle, instead of it being a 6-year sawtooth, if you will, could be a 4-year or 5-year sawtooth. These are new equipment pieces, so they're still trying to figure out what the life cycle is of these. And so because that replacement cycle creates these steep depreciation rates, we'll receive a lot higher rate in the first year and then a depreciated rate over the next, whatever that next period of years is. So to put a specific number in what that enterprise tax exemption is for a factor out of a period of years is kind of difficult based on that replacement cycle. But on a general sense, data shell math would be the value that the data shells, each shell would bring in. Now, I would also point to the fact that the property going from ag to industrial creates additional value and revenue. And then the other auxiliary buildings would be taxed both for real and personal property. So that would add additional increment into the mix as far as additional value that this project would bring forward. The last finding is whether the totality of benefits is sufficient to justify the deduction. And again, as we look at the investment, $11 billion, we're only asking for real property abatement on the data shells, no personal property abatement, and the enterprise technology exemption. Instead of being 100% like a lot of the other projects around the state, this does create some value back to the community on a regular basis at that 85%. Again, we're looking at jobs, 400 employees, additional employees to meet the state hiring requirement, and then other community benefits that will be part of the development agreement that will come forward to you here in the next couple of months. So again, I ask for your approval tonight, a declaratory resolution. This is the first of the two-step process. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the council for Mr. Shalio?
Mr. Root?
Ms. Drake?
So how many shells were you talking about altogether? I forget.
So 9 on the southern site, 7 on the northern site, so 16, with the potential to add 2 more, so 18.
What's the time, and what was the timeline on that?
So they anticipate having the first 4 shells under construction this year, could have them operational. I believe at this point in time, it would be first quarter of 2025.
But then for the rest of them, I mean, is that like a 40-year time period you're expecting those can go out to when you do that 50 years?
So it's all based on their saleability. So I would imagine once they get the first shells up, it will be a continuous construction cycle. We're required as part of our agreements to have water and sewer south of State Road 2 by end of May 2025. So there will be the opportunity for construction on shells and operation on shells south of State Road 2 as early as summer of 2025. The site work has already started south of State Road 2, so we anticipate that this will be a very fluid construction site. Will it take 50 years to build it out? I don't believe it will based on the technology cycles here that they're looking to do.
Well, how many, if they decided that they wanted to do like, you know, I don't know, based on the size, I mean, like 5 more shells or 10 more shells or whatever, do they have the ability to do that? And is there a high point of where they have to stop or?
Yeah, let me go backward. That's a great question. So, So on IEC Site 2, the northern site, the site is maxed out at a total of 9 shells. There's not an opportunity, 9 shells plus the 4 auxiliary buildings. There's no additional space based on needing to meet the drainage requirements and setback requirements and landscaping requirements and open space requirements. So 9 plus 4 small buildings is the max that site can do. IEC Site 3, the northern site, again, can't max out beyond 9 building shells on that site, plus the 4 auxiliary buildings. The site south, IEC Site 4, they're still doing a lot of examination to determine the amount of shells on that area based on wetlands and floodplain and floodways as associated with the Nespajani ditch in that area. So they're still making a determination how many shells they can fit on that area. If the northern site is 300 acres and the southern site is 340 acres, I mean, roughly maybe in 9 additional shells if there weren't environmental constraints on the site. Perhaps on the southern site, maybe a little more, so.
So is that when you said there, originally said there was the 16 with the potential for 2 more, is that on IEC 4, that potential for 2 more?
No, the additional 2 would be along Larison Road on IEC Site 2. So currently, there's 7 buildings proposed. There's a gas line. Back in the day, Larison or Strawberry Road ran directly north and south. I don't know if there's a pointer on this or not. Oh, there is. It used to run north-south. When they built Tech and Coat forced the road to be shifted to the east because of rail traffic on the backside of the site. So it forced Larison Road to be offset. Well, the gas line never was relocated. And so because of the lack of relocation of the gas pipeline, it would take a relocation to allow those 2 additional shells to be built.
How many did you say we're gonna get started right away? 4?
4. So they're doing 2, there's 2 proposed for the east side of the site, 2 proposed for the west side of the site, plus the 4 buildings in the middle.
I guess realistically, when I read that there's such a demand for data centers and all their space, it just doesn't seem to me like it's gonna take 40 years to build that amount of space out.
I think you're absolutely right. I think this will develop a lot faster than that.
Thank you.
Mr. Tanner, or Mr. Tanzarek?
Mr. Shalio, you mentioned, at the very end of your presentation, you mentioned you'll be back in a couple of months to talk about, is it community benefit?
Yeah, so the community benefit credits and other programs will be part of the development agreement. So we've had conversations about participation of a per shell cost. So there'll be revenue that per shell would be then collected either for schools or for, we've talked about fire territory values, some green space, open space things. So there's other credits and programs that will be part of that final development agreement. Those are still being established.
Okay, so we will hear about those in the future.
Correct.
Okay. The 4 support auxiliary buildings you speak of in the first development, you said those are fully taxed for real and personal property.
Correct.
Do we have any idea on what those are valued at, or what they will be valued at?
So they're, based on the square footage of the buildings, I mean, one's 32,000 square feet, one's 40, one's 4,000. So a lot smaller buildings in footprint. So I wouldn't have the same value as the data shell per se, but still will tax at a fairly good rate.
And does the average hourly wage that's quoted in there, is that strictly the wage? Just does not include benefits, correct?
No, I somewhere Mr. Garrett's sitting out there.
I see some Amazon people or somebody, okay.
Yeah, Phil can maybe address the enterprise technology credit piece of that a little more. I believe it's without benefits, but that number is a requirement. So the state requires to get.
That's just pure wage then?
Yeah, so the rate there, it's, wherever it went with the ugly yellow and blue. Oh, there it is. So what we have to do is look at the county wage, the county's average wage, then you have to add 125. So whatever 125% of the published average wage is that 30.74. That would be the without benefits rate.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for you at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Root?
Mr. Tanner?
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill, this is a part of an economic revitalization area as part of the IEC, correct?
Correct.
So the taxes that are accrued through the property tax increases and the valuation change that's going to happen is locked into this area, but that's also to recoup what our infrastructure costs are, what our improvements are to the water, to the roadways, additional fire, police services as may be needed, and things of that nature, correct?
That is correct.
If, and this is a giant if that you probably can't answer, will come to fruition, but if we're able to fulfill our bond obligations much earlier than anticipated, we could release that economic revitalization area to an extent and actually receive that tax benefit distributed across the whole county. Is that correct?
Certainly. So a couple of different ways to maybe answer that question. The economic development area, the New Carlisle Economic Development Area, currently has 3 different bonds outstanding on it. One from 2016, one from 2019 for double track, and the most recent, the GM bond. Each of those have different call dates. So we can pay the bond payment, every year until we hit the call date, and then have the opportunity to pay those bonds off early if we're generating significant revenue. The other thing we can do too is pay the bonds, pay off all our other obligations, and then do perhaps a yearly release of TIF increment back to all the underlying taxing units. So there are some opportunities. If this develops at a rate as we think it will, should be sufficient funds after a period of point where we are able to release revenue back to the underlying taxing units.
Thank you. I don't want to undercut the responsibilities. We're expanding infrastructure, and clearly we talk about upfront costs, but there'll be a long-term maintenance cost that's associated with that too, and I don't want to make light on that, but it seems like we're going to be in a great position to make
We believe this is a great
strategic
opportunity.
decisions.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Shettle?
Thank you, President Root. When we talk about local labor and local contractors, will we see AWS's commitment in those areas in the final development agreement, or is there anything you can tell us now?
So I would tell you that on Thursday, AWS is partnering with the Chamber to do a program where they bring local workforce in, other people that are interested in contracting with AWS. They're doing a workshop or a seminar session. So there are currently outreach efforts going on to bring local workers to the site. I'm sure within the 4 general contractors that are doing work on site, there are opportunities to bring local workforce onto the job site. I've not looked at license plates or anything like that, but there certainly are a lot of Indiana plates in the parking lot. So as far as specific development requirements in the development agreement, those haven't been discussed one way or the other as far as requirements for that. But our tax abatements generally are requiring those use of local labor and things like that where it's applicable for a project. I will tell you, my understanding, the reason they're using 4 GCs on this project is the size and scale and speed of the project and the bonding capacity of those GCs. I mean, these are big GCs that have been brought into the site to do this work. So, it's a massive construction project, so, for the region.
And then one more question. When we were in committee, you mentioned a 1 to 6 residual job creation number for data centers, which I think is important in understanding this project and the Microsoft project. Can you kind of explain what that means?
Well, I can talk more about this one. So we anticipate between direct, indirect, and other related jobs, for every 1 job created, there's 6 jobs that come with that job. So out in the community, whether it's the hotel industry or food service or things like that, there's other jobs created as part of this. So the construction workers on site, the full-time, the permanent, all those jobs together add up to a point where it's roughly a 1 to 6 ratio.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Mr. Root?
Ms. Drake?
One other question. So with this term of 50 years, does it cost the county more in any way to have it 50 versus like 30?
So it doesn't. And really the way the term of years works is this abatement is specific to this abatement. So if they were to add additional projects, say they were to buy another 500 acres or 1,000 acres and wanted these same benefits, we'd have to come back through, even though the area is declared an ERA, we'd have to come back through and go through the whole ERA designation process all over again for that next project as part of this. So if they do all the building and they get it all done in 30 years, then the abatement expires, and then that term of years for the ERA expires.
Mr. Morton?
Mr. Shalio, as far as the development agreement and as that moves forward, I'm assuming this body's going to be kept abreast of how that's developing?
Absolutely, yeah. So the tax abatement, the way, this is a big project. And I mean, we've done big projects before. This has got a lot of moving parts. So the tax abatement's a piece. We've got utility agreements. The Redevelopment Commission and Board of Commissioners just approved a sewer service agreement with City of South Bend this morning. We're working on a similar one with Town of New Carlisle. There's lots of little pieces that go into the big piece. But as we get more clarity on the final big piece of this project through the development agreement, that'll be brought forward. Plenty of time to vet it with the council so that everybody has an opportunity to see it and see how all the pieces fit together as part of this.
Any other further council questions for Mr. Shalio? Hearing none, is the petitioner here?
There is a petitioner rep here. Yep.
Please state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Good evening and thank you. I'm Jeff Bennett. I'm an attorney with the Denton's Law Firm in Indianapolis. And obviously, Bill and Phil have been extremely thorough in putting together their information concerning this project. So I won't belabor the points that they've made or repeat them, subject to any questions that you have. Obviously, I'm outside counsel. I'm not employed by Amazon, so if there are questions you have that I can't answer, we'll certainly commit to getting those answered. As Bill alluded to, this is the beginning of the process for approving the abatement, so we'll be back in front of you for a confirming resolution, and there's also the separate resolution that he referred to for the Enterprise Information Technology Equipment exemption that we would ask you to consider as well. So we'll have other opportunities to be before you in the near future, hopefully, and as well as he said, the agreements that are presently being worked together and put together and discussed, those will be brought forward as well. We're very much appreciating the opportunity. The company is very excited for the opportunity for the county, for the state, and for the company. And with that, I'd be happy to attempt to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the council for the petitioner, Mr. Catanzarite?
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Do you agree with all the representations that were made by Mr. Shalio tonight and everything that was presented in the slide presentation?
Yes. He actually has command of some details that I don't, but I certainly know of no reason to disagree with any of it, so,
Thank you.
yes.
Any other questions from the council for the petitioner? Seeing none, we will move to public
Thank you
hearing
again.
on bill number 42-24. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Seeing no one, is there anyone online who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Please come forward, sign in, and state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Council. Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. My first question is why a company worth $1.9 trillion needs any kind of a tax abatement. But that's not the whole reason. That's not the reason I'm up here at this point. Under privilege will come my other point. Why do they need a tax abatement? But they're building this place right over top of the Kankakee Aquifer. It's where we get our drinking water from. It's where people downstream get their drinking water from. So you folks in the Scottsdale area, all looping around over into Illinois, your drinking water comes from there. Over top of our aquifer, this Amazon facility, this North Amazon facility, will put 1,618,000 gallons of diesel fuel in tanks, in 256 separate tanks, all over that area on the north. And when they develop the area, they'll do a similar situation to the south with the same amount of diesel. And we're told, oh, but they're double-walled tanks. I don't care if they're quadruple-walled tanks. Accidents happen. Some of those tanks are 15 to 20,000 gallon capacity. You get one leak into that aquifer, two leaks, you get sabotage. The best way to avoid an accident is to keep the stuff out of the area. I'm kind of sold, not sold, but I've accepted the fact that Amazon's coming. I still think we can tweak things a little bit to make it better, make it safer, use a different type of fuel. Definitely don't put it above ground in tanks that can be open to sabotage, open to lightning, open to fire, that can just spill into our aquifer, which has either in places a thin clay layer or no protective layer at all. So if we get a spill there, it's going right into our fresh water supply. Thank you.
Will you please sign in, Mr. Caruso?
Again?
Yeah, each time, I guess. Right?
Hello. Once again, my name is Eli Wolf. I live at 27642 State Road 23 in North Liberty. So, again, want to reiterate, this is Amazon, one of the largest, most profitable companies known to mankind ever. And they have bought up agricultural land in New Carlisle that, for the third time we've heard tonight, is being considered an economic growth area. So clearly, there is going to be future growth in New Carlisle. And as he said, they may consider 500 acres in the future or more, which means their impact on this area will be greater each time they decide to grow as a company for our benefit. So what are we getting from tax abatement? If we're going to sell out to companies like this, we should probably get full taxes for it. Thank you.
Charlotte Wolf, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. So some of the same stuff, but wetlands, very high water table, low-lying land. That's why it's been farmland. That's why it hasn't been expensive land. And that's exactly why Amazon wants to come here and these other data centers. They want to come where land is cheap, because where they, have been further east, land's more expensive. They basically want to take us to the bank, okay? And you guys, I just don't understand why that is not more widely seen, is that they're fleecing us. They're making communities like ours outbid ourselves, underbid rather, who gets the Amazon. So we keep lowering our bids for who gets Amazon and these other data centers. And that's going to cause problems, especially with this particular property area. As I've said at previous meetings, it's a very, very delicate, environmentally delicate area. And these kinds of projects are really better suited for higher land. And the other question I have is, why do they need the contiguous land? Why do they have to have all of these buildings in the same spot? I guess I'm just not as familiar with the way these campuses are planned out. But why can't we redevelop land instead of going onto prime farmland? And the other thing that we need to look at is what the wages here are. There was a question about the wages. $30 an hour minus benefits is not a whole lot. If anybody has tried to raise a family on, $20 an hour, which is $25 an hour plus benefits, it's really difficult. And then all of these yellow badge workers are going to be making even less. They're not going to be making much more than, $15 an hour. How are they going to get to the site? Because most of the population that would want that would be in South Bend. So as previously discussed, how will they get to the site if they don't have a car? There's no bus transportation or train transportation. So that's just going to mean more cars going back and forth, plus more out-of-state, low-wage workers who don't really have an investment and can't have an investment in our community. Thank you.
Hello, Tom McCormick, 66488 Sycamore Road, North Liberty. Thank you, council, for letting me speak. I guess the big concern, a company like this and the other data center coming into our area, they have to have our land that we have. They have to have our water to be able to chill the systems. So they have to have and come into this area to do what they're doing. That's why they've come in here. That's why they're going into LaPorte County, because of our water aquifer. Necessarily giving up the tax abatement, realizing that the people in the communities need the water and the people downstream, so to, as earlier mentioned, need our water as well. These data facilities are also going to need our electric. We've been blessed in this part of the country by not having to have what we see in other parts of countries known as rolling brownouts. I've said probably 10 years ago, there will be a day we see rolling brownouts in northern Indiana. They mentioned a year ago when we came into a heat wave of a potential brownout up here in northern Indiana. We made it through that time period. I don't know how many remember that. We move into these data centers as fast as we are, we're going to have to be looking at other ways in this county to provide the electrical resources we need, not just for the data centers, but for you and I living in our homes. So as we're looking at giving the tax abatement to a company that has to have this part of the country to make that work, I'm recommending we not do the tax abatement because they need us probably more than we need them. So thank you.
Tom Rowe, 26160 Lake Lane. I heard the presentations on this for tonight, okay? And one of the assurances was that the council will be fully vetted on everything. I hope it does. I look forward to the first reading by Ms. Drake and Mr. Root as far as transparency. I'm looking forward to that very much, but hopefully we're not fooled a third time. Thank you.
Hello, Tim Cotton, 63808 State Road 23, North Liberty. You know, as a libertarian, I constantly look at how deals can be used by, you know, one side or other to, you know, for lack of better words, exploit the citizens of the county, of the city. What I worry about with this rolling tax abatement, and that's what this is, it's a 50-year deal where they only have to partially build data centers. You know, they're talking about 16, possibility of 18. They build 4 data centers, wait a few years. The next cycle where they start decommissioning machines, they start, you know, setting up the next data center. Hey, that's a brand new abatement. Okay, what are we doing with the old data center? They don't necessarily have to fill it. That is leverage that we are giving them to say, oh, we want to redo this data center over here. We're going to put new equipment in here so we'll have, you know, 8 instead of 4 or 12 instead of 8 or 4. We are giving them leverage to say, hey, we want to come back to the table and, you know, you need to renew this abatement or we want a new deal. By giving them a 50-year tax abatement, we are giving them the pistol and we're placing it in their hands. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak in opposition? Being no one? Oh, sir. Please come forward, sign in, state your name and address for the record. If anyone else wants to speak, please go ahead and start lining up now in opposition.
Well, when all you people are in church on Sundays, I watch Full Measure. And I don't know if you are aware of what happened to the town of Phoenix. To the west of Phoenix,
Sir, we need your name and address. For
John
the record.
Jaworski, 62100 Redwood Road, North Liberty. In the town of Phoenix, the Saudis bought up all the land to the west of Phoenix. And what they do is farm feed that they send all the way to Saudi Arabia for their dairy farms. and it has depleted that reservoir, that aquifer, sufficiently. And people who are residential in West Phoenix have spent up to $35,000 to deepen their wells. This playing with this aquifer is real serious business. There are a lot of examples throughout the western United States where depleting the aquifers really harmed communities. You have to think this through. I haven't seen any figures as to what water flow is going to be needed for these plants. And what's going to happen to this aquifer when they're around for 30, 50 years? What's going to happen to the people? They're going to have to drill their wells deeper? Are we going to have the same problem that Phoenix had? Think about it. Get online, see what happened to Phoenix. That's all I have to say.
Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing no one online, Mr. Francis, please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, Steve Francis, 2-Day Lake Drive, Clay Township. Thank you and good evening. Yeah, let's talk numbers a little bit and what the purpose of tax abatement is. Number one, it's to incentivize the location decision of a business. Amazon is already here. They're already building out there. They've already been issued construction permits, which I think is illegal, but it's been done. So we don't need to incentivize them to come here. They are a very wealthy corporation. 400 jobs is not impressive for the type of abatement for an $11 billion investment. You just granted Lippert Industries for a $40 million investment for 100 jobs, a tax abatement. So do the math. This is only 400 jobs, 4 times the amount, but it's 100 times that in terms of the investment. It's a bad deal for St. Joe County. Second, the 50-year period, let me address that. Why don't you incentivize them to build it out earlier? Give them a 20-year period now with a possibility of an extension later on, but get this thing moving, fulfill that 400 job requirement that you're apparently willing to settle for earlier rather than 50 years from now when we're not here. And no one here will be here to monitor that because they won't be required to provide those jobs until the abatement period is over. Third, this abatement, look at the numbers. Their SB1 was not provided to us. It's going to be a $100 million abatement over the 10-year period for only 9 buildings. If they build 16 buildings, it'll be a $200 million abatement just for the real property. The extended or the other property for the enterprise property is going to be even more. So you're giving away $100 million when you have other needs in this county. You have $100 million you need to invest in the building you're sitting in. You have denied us buildings and the Portage Manor, for example, because we don't have the funds. Mental health facilities, because we don't have the funds. We need sewers up in Clay Township, but we don't have the funds. We have septic up here. It's not a good deal. This is something that you should take time to reconsider, not move tonight, just grant them a 20-year period with a possibility of an extension, extend that olive branch, but do not grant a 50-50 tax abatement at a $100 million shot. That's way too much money. Finally, I want to talk about the development agreement because as much as you all feel that you're involved in the development agreement, I know better. You are not allowed to be involved in the development agreement. You haven't signed NDAs to my knowledge, and neither is the public. I'd like to list some things that I think need to be in that development agreement. Will Amazon commit to rooftop solar on buildings and parking lots so that they can power those facilities at least partially with renewables?
Mr. Francis, your 3 minutes are up, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk next time about the development agreement. Thank you.
Michael, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the council. Michael?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry, this is Mike McManus, 51940 Lilac Road, South Bend. This is the real conundrum of modern life and growing technology and our dependence on it. And you, ladies and gentlemen, have some really difficult decisions ahead of you. I agree fundamentally with most of the things that both Mr. McCormick and Dan Caruso and Steve Francis said about this deal, primarily the abatement. We are taking a huge risk here with our water, and Amazon is not. And Amazon, as Mr. McCormick pointed out, does need us more than we need them. So we're in this at essentially a 50-50 proposition. And I don't know that it's fair. If the aquifer somehow gets spoiled and our water is ruined, our whole county and the city of South Bend and Mishawaka could be up a river without a paddle, so to speak. Amazon will just move on to another spot. So I know it's a very difficult decision that you have to make, but 50-50 is not a good proposition for us. We lose on that deal. And again, I know that building the economy is a top priority for all of us, but we have to do it in a way that preserves our community in the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public hearing on bill number 42-24 is now closed. The petitioner, where's the petitioner? Has 5 minutes to rebut anything that was said.
Thanks again to the council. Just a couple points. We very much appreciate the community engagement, and we look forward to continued dialogue. We think it's important. Just want to point out that in the process that began this development, Indiana and St. Joseph County actually competed in a nationwide evaluation when developing new areas. And obviously, the project landed here for a lot of good reasons here for the state and for the local economy. And also want to point out there are a lot of upfront costs in that process, like fiber and infrastructure of that nature. And just to be clear, Amazon is not seeking abatement, obviously, on water, sewer, road infrastructure. Those are the things that would impact revenue bonds. I would also point out that the abatement amounts here are well below what the maximum could be that you could give someone standing before you. And in my experience around the state, I've seen a lot of companies awarded 10-year, 100% abatement on their new property. This is obviously nowhere near that. It's a measured amount, which we think is appropriate incentive based upon the unique use type. And there still will be payments on both real and personal property taxes, since not all the real property being constructed would be subject to abatement. Not all, there obviously is no abatement for personal property, but there will even be personal property here that's not subject to the exemption that we've talked about. So there's a lot of revenue going in the county's direction from day one. Again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. May I have a motion on bill 42-24, Mr. O'Brien?
Right. So you might recall that the documents were updated to reflect the name change, so I would suggest the motion be to approve with the amended name now reflecting Amazon Data Services, Inc.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Is there a motion on bill 42-24?
Motion to approve with the amended name of Amazon Data Services, Inc. on the documentation, Mr. Root.
Second.
We've got a motion to approve made by Councilman Catanzarite, seconded by Councilman Thomas. Any further council discussion on the bill? Mr. Catanzarite.
I might ask Mr. Shalio or maybe a representative from Amazon to come up and speak, just to kind of talk about some of the things that were brought up. Unfortunately, not everything we hear in committee is always transmitted to the public who's here tonight, but I do know that the issue with diesel tanks that Mr. Caruso brought up, besides being a double-walled or triple-walled tank, there's containment systems that actually would contain the full volume of that tank in the event that it would leak. I'm presuming that those tanks will have those containment systems underneath those above-ground tanks, and I don't think I'd want those tanks underground. So if you're above ground, you're going to notice a leak sooner, and I'm certain there's probably some kind of a monitoring system that does it. Can you address that?
Yeah.
Can somebody address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way the buildings are designed, the building is a long rectangular building. Outside of that, on one side is the containment yard with the diesel storage tanks, the above-ground storage tanks. Those diesel tanks power the generators that power the site in the event of a needed backup or some kind of electrical surge or something like that. I would note, so I will be honest with you, I am a liberal arts major, political science and history. I don't have a great grasp of aquifers, but we've been talking about aquifers for the last 10 years here. If we didn't do any development on aquifers, we wouldn't have any development in St. Joseph County. So to say we can't do development on top of an aquifer is a little bit of a hyperbole. We need to be careful how we do development. Again, these are above-ground storage tanks. They're regulated, they're double-walled, they're within secure areas, all of those kind of things. I mean, you think of gas stations that have underground storage tanks, other businesses that have underground storage tanks. I would much rather have mine above ground in a situation like this so that they can be monitored and protected. So a lot of environmental regulation goes into these. Now, there are a couple of things that are important, and I don't believe I've got the wellhead protection map in here. But as we look at the aquifer in the IEC area, we have a water treatment plant almost directly across the street from IEC Site 2. There's one just to the west on the northwest corner of Edison and Walnut. So we've got two water treatment plants that are immediately adjacent. Those water treatment plants both have or will have wellhead protection areas. So there are additional requirements on top of the regular requirements that will be needed to be met to allow for the storage of fuel, the amount of fuel, the location of the fuel, all those kind of things. So a lot of additional testing, a lot of additional requirements. Again, there are always accidents. I mean, accidents happen, and we all know that. That's why they're called accidents. But this will meet or exceed every requirement that exists that currently exists. We do know that the team has spent a lot of time on the engineering side, working with the town of New Carlisle with their fire department, talking about the fuel storage. They spent a lot of time working with the building department and with the engineering department, all to make sure that all these requirements are met or exceeded the requirements.
With the GM project, we require them to put in monitoring wells to protect the aquifer. I'm presuming we're doing the same thing to a degree with this project.
Absolutely. So let's talk about aquifer and water usage and things like that again. So as we look at this project, as we look at the aquifer, this is the purple area is kind of the area of which, we talk about the IEC. Now, this is the old version of the IEC, a lot bigger area, big study area. The aquifer that we draw out of is the Kankakee Aquifer System. The Kankakee Aquifer System has about a 44.2 million gallons a day draw. So it creates about 44.2 million gallons a day. Currently, the Cleveland Cliffs plant takes about 3 million gallons a day out of the aquifer, and the SJEC water treatment plant, which is to the west, the newer water treatment plant, takes 6 million gallons a day out of the aquifer. So right there between the two, roughly 18 million gallons of water out of the aquifer a day. What we're looking to do is increase water production for the GM project and for the other projects. Oh, I'm sorry, 6 plus 3 is 9.
Right.
Sorry.
9?
Okay. I was ahead of myself looking at the numbers. So right now we're at 9 between the two facilities with 2 plant expansions. One for that's really largely going to be for the GM Samsung project, and then for the first phase for IEC Site 2, and then ultimately we'll do a second phase or phase 3 for the additional production water that's needed. We don't anticipate extending beyond 18, 19, 20, 21 million gallons of water a day. Now, as part of our water service agreement that we're doing with the town of New Carlisle, we're looking to cap industrial water production out of the 2 water treatment plants at 24 million gallons a day. So that gives almost 20 million gallons of water that are protected that aren't used as part of the aquifer network. Now, I clip ahead a couple. This map, created by Peerless Midwest, shows both irrigation pivot wells, which are these, the more industrial wells, the farm wells, and then the residential wells that draw out of the aquifer. So in addition, so if we were to cap at 24 million gallons, there's additional water that's taken out of the aquifer, but still that 20 million gallon buffer is a huge buffer for aquifer protection. There are monitoring wells that will be part of this project, both on IEC Site 2 and IEC Site 3 and 4. Those monitoring wells, plus the GM monitoring wells, plus monitoring wells on SJEC's facility and Tech and Coat, will all help transmit and track water quality, or water depth, aquifer depth, any other conditions that are part of that area. So one of the things we've decided going forward is that those monitoring wells are an essential part of all development agreements, because again, we're trying to do all the best that we can to track the aquifer.
Moving on, a couple other things were brought up. I know you just suggested if they would ever decide to expand another 500 or 1,000 acres, there's no initial plan of that. Is that correct? Not the same we would be against that, but I know you just said that as an example, and one of the speakers said that they're already planning to add another 500 or 1,000 acres.
I think one of the challenges with IEC Site 4 is because there is some of the floodway, floodplain concerns in that area. I think they do look at the opportunity perhaps to grow other areas within the IEC for that site. Again, I want to address one of the comments. The question was, why don't you disperse the campus buildings across the site? Largely, the opportunity to get all the utilities in one place, the opportunity to get security in one place. These are very secure sites. So to put a facility here and a facility here and a facility here just doesn't really work from a disparate nature of site development. Is there the potential that they continue to grow? I think there certainly is.
Right. And just to be clear again, I thought we clarified earlier, one of the comments about them fleecing us, the 3074 is an hourly wage excluding benefits, right?
Correct.
Benefits are on top of that.
Yes, and we will, as we move forward, we'll get the wage models for the project. That's one of the things that will be part of a future presentation.
How about we talk about rolling brownouts, because I know that they don't want to locate in an area unless they have energy secured.
Yeah.
Just like, I know we heard that Microsoft was doing the same thing across the county. They weren't going to be able to locate there unless there was an adequate energy supply.
Yeah, so there was a great article released yesterday in Inside Edge, or Indiana Inside Business, that talked about power for data centers and power, the power industry within the state of Indiana. And certainly there was an announcement earlier today about a major influx of revenue for the Palisades nuclear plant, putting it back online. One of the things, we wouldn't be looking at projects that cause us intentionally to not be able to power ourselves. The power companies, as we work with them, as they look at their business models, obviously they want to have capacity in their network. If another project were to come in, if we were going to continue to have residential development, that they can power those facilities and not have brownout effects. Again, the electrical networks continue to be upgraded in this area. Again, overuse and hot days and things like that do create opportunities for some of those kind of things, and I don't speak as an electrical engineer or anything like that. But, I think, as these businesses track this opportunity, they're going to do everything they can to service and yet provide additional service capacity for additional users. Much like we're trying to protect the aquifer, they'll protect the electrical supply to have reserve for those uses.
Okay. And probably the last thing I just wanted to mention that Mr. Francis alluded to, that we're doing something illegal here tonight, and I don't think we are. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, so I think what Mr. Francis was alluding to was that building permits have been issued on the site. All the building permits that have been issued, both at the state and the local level, have gone through all the regular processes to do things. The way the state statute reads is once the SB1s are filed, then there's the opportunity to start pulling permits. That language is within the declaratory resolution. It's referenced there. The state law section is referenced there. So as soon as they filed the SB1s, they were able to start moving forward with pulling permits. Obviously at risk, because they still have to go through this process, but.
Right. I think that answered most of the questions I noticed that had come up by the opposition, that I felt comfortable making the motion to send it forward favorably. And to Mr. Jaworski, the aquifer we live in, I don't know where you're sitting, but we take it very seriously. We progressive, I'd say proactively, 26, 27 years ago, passed the St. Joe County Groundwater Protection Ordinance, and since then, we passed the Wellhead Protection Ordinance. So we do appreciate and know the value of our aquifer, and we don't take it lightly. And we wouldn't want anybody to come in here and take advantage of us for our aquifer. And that's why I wanted Mr. Shalio to explain some of the security measures that are going to be in place to protect the aquifer. And like you said, accidents do happen. I mean, a semi-truck gets in an accident and they're carrying 100 gallons of diesel fuel. I know it's not the thousands of gallons that Mr. Cruz was referring to, but it does spill into the ground. And immediately an environmental cleanup company comes and remediates that so it doesn't get into the aquifer. There are protections. There are bound to be accidents at places, but it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, they're going to be prepared for any kind of environmental accident that could occur, and at least be proactive and be on top of it so we can remediate it immediately. Those answer my questions, Mr. Root. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Catanzarite. Any other council? Mr. Morton?
Mr. Shalio, just point of clarification, those statistics that you just referred to as far as the demand on the aquifer, aren't those basically based upon the beginning phases of this entire project or not?
So the way we've set up the aquifer model, that 24 million gallon cap, is we basically created a graph, if you will, and said, we know that Cleveland Cliffs, Tech and Coat use this much, and all the other industrial users use this much, and the town uses this much, and there's the opportunity to grow the town through additional development. So it's gonna need this much. GM's gonna take this much. Phase 1 and Phase 2, or IEC Site 2 and IEC Site 3 are going to take this much. There's additional capacity built into that number for suppliers, for additional development. But we know that 24 million gallons, based on the development out of the 2 water treatment plants with additional wells added, that's the max capacity at those 2 facilities that we want to grow the water system. Now, again, there's other users using the aquifer, so, whether it's irrigation pivots or residences that are on well and septic, things like that. So we know that there's other water being used, and the Imperial study talks about those other water numbers. But again, we believe that 20 million range, if we stop at 24 and we know that the aquifer does 44, that leaves a lot of flex for additional water in the system.
That's what I'm trying to get to, as far as this project being such a long-term and ongoing. Won't those demands on the aquifer increase as we go forward?
Well, again, we've used a lot of the land in the IEC with these 2 projects, this project, the GM project. So we've built out models that anticipate the additional water supply needs of other users. Now, we talked about a 100-acre rail yard earlier today. 100-acre rail yard isn't going to use a lot of water. I mean, it may have bathrooms, may have an office, may have some things like that. So again, as we built the model of what we see the build-out of the water system and the water needs for the IEC, we're comfortable that for the foreseeable future, 24 million gallons will far exceed the demand that we have.
I'll talk to you after this.
Okay.
Any other further council
President Root.
discussion? Mr. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Root. Can you, back to the jobs, the 400 jobs, somebody mentioned that too. The 400 jobs versus what we're going to get from Amazon, then what was the 1,000? Can you explain the other 600 jobs, the difference from the 400 to the 600?
So as part of the SB1s, Amazon or ADS has committed to 400 jobs. Those 400 jobs will be tracked, will be Blue Badge or Amazon employees. And so they'll have to meet the requirements of that enterprise technology exemption. The other jobs on site, the Yellow Badge jobs, are third-party contractors. So they could be landscaping, security, additional data technicians, things like that may fall outside of those numbers. And based on the state agreement that they have, there's a state commitment for 1,000 jobs. The way the state tracks their numbers and the way the county, based on the enterprise technology exemption, track those numbers, they're different, but the commitment to the state was 1,000 jobs, so 400 plus 600 gets to that 1,000 job number.
Okay. Thank you.
President Root.
Mr. Schetzel?
Thank you. I can also testify that they're already hiring. I have a friend who lives here in town, and his son is a computer engineer of some kind, way above my pay grade, but he's already been contacted by Google and Microsoft. so to come and work for 5 years in developing what they're going to do. So I also wanted to mention to Mr. Caruso, several months ago, he had mentioned his concern about the diesel, and I started doing some research, and I'm sure other council members have as well. I haven't found one instance where a diesel spill at a data center tainted drinking water. Now, I've found small spills that were contained, but I haven't found anything that tainted drinking water yet. I wanted to mention that. And before we vote, I also wanted to ask Mr. Shalio to one more time, just explain exactly what we're voting on here, because a lot has been said.
Yeah. So again, the declaratory resolution today, the two pieces we're asking you to approve are the designation of the economic revitalization area, that's the 2 sites, and then the term of years. And again, we're proposing a 50-year term of years for the life of the project. And maybe I heard the statement wrong, I just want to be clear. Each building, after it's, as it's built, would have a 10-year lifespan of that tax abatement. So it's not as a building is built and then remodeled and built and, so each building itself would have a 10-year life, not a rolling 50 years of abatement. The 50-year term of abatement would be for the total development of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fig?
I just have a question back about the diesel. Why don't they use natural gas for the generators?
I think there are some systems that use natural gas. I don't know why they've chosen diesel over natural gas here. I do know that we do have some challenges with the NIPSCO gas system in that area. We are doing some major upgrades. Maybe as the technology changes or as the building models change, there would be an opportunity to switch to natural gas, but that's outside of my engineering skill set.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Tanner?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have less questions and more just comment as to maybe even allude how I'm going to vote on this. But I do want to note that it was mentioned that land's cheap here and things of that nature. But I think there's more to it than that as to why this or other data centers have been attracted to our area. We do have a statewide program that it incentivizes this. It's not just the local economy. It's the state as a whole has made a strategic decision to attract this kind of business. But beyond that, we do have extensive availability of utilities for this site and others throughout the area. The land price may be a contributing factor. The upper Midwest, which we're in northern Indiana, maybe others will classify Minnesota as the upper Midwest, but we have a pretty mild climate here. We have 4 seasons. We have very few really hot days a year that mitigates and limits the amount of strain on the water utilization to cool a facility like this. We are right along one of the densest, most plentiful dark fiber trunk lines throughout the entire continental U.S. Dark fiber being unutilized trunk lines of fiber optics that connect these communication systems. So there's more than just land price that drives this. As far as I'm concerned and as far as the information that's been presented to us publicly, privately, and otherwise throughout the course of these considerations. I'm going to say something that's probably going to upset a few people here, but I think it's rooted in fact. It's not me being anti-farming by any measure whatsoever. These are the amber waves of grain that we sang about in elementary school, and we still hear at occasionally national sporting events. But at the same time, we'd be foolish to say that farming has zero ecological impact on our environment. It's not to say that it's a net negative. We obviously get our food sources from the work and the sweat and the tears that the farmers put into this land. But to say that there's zero ecological impact from that, we'd be lying to ourselves. I'd invite anybody who's concerned about the history of the Kankakee Marsh. Actually, I think it's the Grand Kankakee Marsh, if we're going historical, to visit HoosierValley.org that talks significantly about the human impact on drainage, that this entire area was a marshland historically until the late 19th and early 20th century. Where canals were built that we now refer to as ditches or regulated drains. That this is the human impact on the environment that we're on. We've already committed that to an extent. I'm not saying that a data center is going to have more or less of an impact than that historically has, but we can't just deny that human impact hasn't already existed in this area, and the environmental consequences already occurred through nitrogen and phosphates and other things that improve yield. It's something that I enjoy and we all enjoy because it affects our prices at the grocery store or our feedstock and things of that nature. But again, we can't lie to ourselves and say there's no ecological impact from that work. But really, the baser philosophy that I consider whenever I look at abatements, and I'm speaking as one of 9, whether others share this same philosophy or not is up to them, but we've talked a lot about giveaways. Abatement is giving away all of these taxes. Anytime we consider an abatement, or I consider an abatement at the very least, is would this project happen if not for the abatement? You can make the argument that Amazon, as large of a company that it is, could afford to create this project in a silo, in a vacuum, without any tax incentives. But it's not in a silo, it's not in a vacuum. They're investing in similar opportunities throughout the US. I think their CEO and founder has famously said that they operated at a deficit for a decade or more earlier on in their life. But people were investing, and they operate as one of the most valuable companies in the world, based on investor incentives and speculation as to what their value is, not necessarily their net profit annually. And ultimately, we are in competition for projects of this nature with not just other communities in Indiana, not just other communities throughout the Midwest, but the whole country. And in reality, other communities, because they don't have as good a conditions as we do here, because their utilities may be more expensive, because they may be in a warmer climate, because they may have higher land prices, they have to give 100% tax incentives to attract a development like this. And to the credit of our economic development team and the negotiation process that they've gone through, they've ensured that we've at least got even skin in the game, that we're actually not just giving away these taxes, but we're phasing in new taxes that would not have existed if not for an incentive like this. That if not for this kind of a program, the project wouldn't happen, and we wouldn't be the beneficiaries of an equal amount of taxes gained for the area and resources that we can leverage toward other good in the area. And please disagree with me if you will, but I wanted to give you the baser understanding of why I will vote the way I do tonight and the considerations that I've taken on. And that's just a smattering of it, not the complete picture. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further council comment on 42-24? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Schetzel?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Fag?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
President Root?
No.
No?
No.
8-1.
Let the
It
record
passes.
show that bill number 42-24 is passed by a vote of 8-1. That concludes our land use and planning issues for tonight. Next up is any unfinished business. Seeing none, next up is new business. Mr. O'Brien. We have a review of Mr. O'Brien's legal fees. Did everybody receive that at the beginning of the month? Are there any, let's take a motion. May we have a motion to accept Mr. O'Brien's legal fees?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve was made by Mr. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Fig. Any further council discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting Mr. O'Brien's legal fees for May of 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
It is the chair's decision that the majority have voted in favor of approving Mr. O'Brien's legal fees. Next up is any old business. Next up is privilege of the floor. Anybody wishing to speak may come forward and speak on any topic not on tonight's agenda. Please sign in, and you will have 3 minutes to address the council. And let me remind you again, this is on any topic not on tonight's agenda. Mr. Caruso, start us off.
Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street. Thank you for your work, all your consideration tonight. And I know that there was a lot of gut wrenching, a lot of soul searching going on with your decisions. I know you don't take this lightly. I want to remind you of the situation that happened with Light Source BP. We went back and forth trying to get them approved. It's the solar project in New Carlisle, where we went back and forth, and finally at the end of things, because they're in a TIF district, we argued, well, they're not sharing the revenues with the local taxing entities. And at the end of the day, they agree. New Prairie High School got a $75,000 check from them. The town of New Carlisle got just a kind of a check made to the town, who then dispersed it among the taxing entities. And that is going on for, I'm not sure what the duration of that is, but that was an agreement that Light Source BP bought in on. I happen to want to call that a community enhancement fund. Not knowing the true value of Light Source BP, but knowing that Amazon is worth $1.9 trillion, I would like for a citizen board made up of teachers, community members. I would suggest that get together and that Amazon pay a like amount.
So I'd like to remind you, we're not allowed to, we're addressing the financials of Amazon here. Let's stay away from anything on tonight's agenda as best you can.
Okay. I would like to see a community enhancement fund, and that the businesses, all the businesses coming into the economic development area in New Carlisle pay into this fund at the rate that Light Source BP did, say a percentage, let's say for an example, GM Samsung. Don't know, but I would guess that they're worth more than Light Source BP. So if Light Source BP gave $150,000, then Samsung, GM Samsung should give $300,000, and that this citizens board should determine, do we need to build new schools with this money? Because these businesses are going to be bringing in new workers with families, with children who will be going to our schools, who will be unable to take them in without expanding the schools. We'll have to hire, improve our fire service somehow. We'll need more firefighters. We're going to have to fund that somewhere. And I think a community enhancement fund looked after by community members, thank you, would be an appropriate thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caruso.
Charlotte Wolf, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. And I like the idea of the Community Enhancement Fund. I think it's important that we take a look at what all the citizens are going to be benefiting, and also that we look at what young people who want to live here, retaining our young people, what do they really want when they stay here? They want quality of life. And I would be the first person to agree that the ecological impacts of industrial farming are huge, and that we should be restoring land instead of increasing the amount of damage to the land. And yes, we need jobs, but not at the cost of paving over the county, polluting the air, water, et cetera. And I just wanted to, some of my own research statewide, that these data centers, yes, there have been state incentives, and they have justified the retention of coal-fired power plants further south, which has increased our total carbon emissions from our state. And that is in direct opposition to the reduction of carbon emissions that other states and countries have agreed to and that we need to be doing. Thank you.
Hi,
guys, my name's Amanda Mitchell, and my address is 27205 Riley Road. And I actually wanted to talk to you guys about the same thing, farmland. We hear a lot about the talk of the economic side of farmland and how we're bringing in a lot of this development. But I'm kind of curious if you guys have actually looked at the total overall arable land versus agricultural land, right? Where I live, my yard we can't farm there. I mean, we can't put rows of crops in. But when we start planning for our future, there's a lot of this, and we're like, we're bringing this development, but are you guys thinking about how we're gonna get food in the future? Or how this will impact the farming community? I was actually told by somebody out in New Carlisle that they had worked in farming retail, and because all this stuff is coming out, they had to be retrained in another industry. And as we're looking, so when all these companies come in and they're taking the farmland, the demand for farming stuff goes down while prices go up. And then the prices go up, it makes it harder for the new generation of farmers to even come in here. How are they gonna afford land? Go look up on Zillow, Google, like even 20 acres. We know it's gonna take more than 20 acres to grow food, right? But go look at how expensive it is for a young farmer to come in here. Are you guys thinking about our future when it comes to this issue, or is it just about development? What kind of development? And then the other thing too I wanted to bring up was, I came across it, did you guys realize that the Indiana statute states that private utilities can take power of eminent domain? So as we're going through, and I'm not gonna talk about solar, but what about renewable energy systems? As we're transferring over all this farmland to I'm so sorry, brain thing, but as we're transferring all their farmland to this stuff, and we're transferring off of fossil fuels, this is gonna be part of our critical infrastructure. And if these utilities, what do you honestly believe for all this stuff is going if we're gonna actually switch this back over to farmland? So I'm just asking you guys to actually think about our future, not just in the sense of development. I mean, industry's great. I don't think there's anybody in here that's against industry, but we're saying the zoning laws and everything you guys have is there for our protection. Right? We don't put industry in the backyard. We try to keep nuisances, and we try to be respectful to the people in our community, and that's what I think most of us are asking for. So I'll see you guys next week, or actually at the area planning, and I thank you for your time.
Hello again, Tom McCormick, 66488 Sycamore Road, North Liberty, St. Joe County. Good evening, County Council. First, definitely want to say thank you to each of the council members that took the time to call me back this past week, as well as calling my fellow neighbors that called you. The council member that I was not able to have the opportunity to speak with and visit with, I would still like to have that opportunity to talk with you. I can be reached at 574-876-8831. I know several of you took the opportunity to come down to North Liberty to see what we have going on, and this is truly a unique situation versus what has already been done in different parts of the county. If you've not taken this opportunity to come down to North Liberty area, or would like to have the opportunity to see, again, I'd like to invite each of you to come down to our area, and you can reach me at the same phone number. As you all know, I did not win the recent primary for the commissioner's seat that I had had hopes of working with each of you here in the county. My slogan at the same time with the campaign was wanting what's best for you. That means all of us. That means what is best for those that are for and those that are against, as well as the entire county's best interest. Somewhere in the middle is always a workable solution and a workable compromise. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Again, please feel free to reach out to me, 574-876-8831, because I want what's best for all of us. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Rhonda Richards, 1020 Clover Street, South Bend, Indiana. Again, I want to thank you, just like the others have, for all the diligent work you do. I know you work hard. I know we don't see but a portion of what you guys get to see and have to deal with to sort through all of this. But I have a deep concern for the county as well as for the city in this area. You seem to get a bunch of information and make decisions before it ever comes to the public, and then the public gives their input, and you still vote the way you have come. You don't give the public enough time to speak in a timely manner that gives you chance to ponder and research what we have said. You came, there was only one person descending on one vote of everything tonight. Everything was 9-0. That means you guys had made up your mind before you got here, which is fine. That means you've done the work and you've done that. I applaud the committees, applaud all the fine work you're doing, but the public is who you are to represent, not just the corporations, not just the others. Our concerns for the aquifer, our concerns for the livelihood of our families around us, our concerns for the traffic on Route 2 or on Route 20, our concerns for turning New Carlisle into an industrial area, which is something that you guys, not all of you at least, had any planned or had any part in the planning of when that was developed, and you're living with it. And just like one of you stated, the aquifer has been damaged since way before our time. And it came from industry out of Chicago and out of other places that were making industry and presenting jobs. But it has not necessarily turned out good. Now all those jobs are closing down. Those jobs are being found to be bad and negative in more ways than they had anticipated. And I'm not sure that some of the industries and the things that you're bringing into the county and are considering without hearing as much public input as you could may not do the same to us. So I thank you for all your work, but please remember, we have the right in the First Amendment to redress our government. We should be able to do that, whether it's through a clap or whether it's through talking about something that's on the agenda that you've already decided, or whether it's having to take time off of our jobs and possibly lose our jobs for taking time off of to go to a meeting that's only during daytime hours when you guys are appropriate. I get that. I understand it. I understand business. But the public needs to be heard too. And thank you for your time and effort. And I really do appreciate all that you guys do. And I do understand it, but you do need to listen to us too.
Hello again. Eli Wolf at 27642 State Road 23 in North Liberty. First off, I want to apologize for the glasses. I know they're sunglasses, but they're prescription, and I forgot to change them. So I'd like to replicate some of what they said. I believe that the areas affected for growth in the future should be a community council. Honestly, don't think, no offense to all of you, I don't believe 9 people is enough to appropriately vote on issues. And the people affected in communities need a larger voice, a more powerful voice. And something, again, the resources of the area. I know, Mr. Tanner, you talked about the Grand Kankakee. When Theodore Roosevelt came down the Kankakee and saw what we had, they decided to drain it off and use the water somewhere else, creating some of the most fertile ground possible. That's not something you can replicate. That's not something you can buy. And that's something that only we have to offer. The future may hold changes, but there are past things that are important to retain. And that's one of the reasons why community voice is so important, is because we are the heart. And you cannot put a price on nostalgia or the value of love. Love for the community, love for land, love for history. So, unfortunately, you do have a hard job, but we are affected as well. And we do deserve a larger voice in these issues. Because the only thing that I can think of when I have been sitting here this whole time is the lyrics from the song, which I don't remember, other than the fact of they paved paradise to put in a parking lot. We cannot become a wasteland. We already have too much desolation and destruction in South Bend, Mishawaka, and the surrounding areas. I drive around for a living delivering things, and all I see all day, empty factories, empty houses, broken dreams. We need to develop this city and stop selling off our resources outside of it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to take advantage of privilege of the floor? Seeing no one, we will move online. Michael, you're up. Michael?
Thank you. Two brief things.
Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Mike McManus, sorry, 51940 Lilac Road. Two brief things, both sort of on process. First, thank you very much to those members of the council who asked Mr. Shalio and others questions, and those members of the council who spoke and explained their positions on certain things. Both asking questions and the council members stating their reasoning is very helpful to we citizens. And you're right, there's lots of information that we don't know and we don't see. So when you do those things, it's of great educational benefit to us, and makes us, at least it makes me much more comfortable with decisions that have been made. Second, I would like to point out in the past couple of months, there have been instances where county employees have been disappointingly and disturbingly called out and disciplined for either poor performance or conduct in a very public way. One by a member of the council at a council meeting, and two, the commissioners publicly demeaned a county employee. There's a great deal of danger in both of those things and other instances as well. One, it certainly doesn't show off the county very well. Two, it's not good for morale. And three, if there are legitimate concerns about anybody's conduct that need to be rectified, by making comments in public like that and humiliating people in public like that, you endanger the possibility of anything actually being done and upheld, like at a hearing or in a court of law. So I would ask that you consider, along with the new HR handbook, a clear disciplinary process that protects the employees of the county. Right now, I don't know that there is one, and that's just not right. County employees who work so hard for all of us should have protections and should not be subjected to public reprimands.
Mr. McManus, your time is up. Thank you. Mr. Francis, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Steve Francis, Judy Lake Drive, Clay Township. I want to talk about development agreements and tax abatements in general, Mr. Root, so not in relation.
Go ahead.
To, okay, you can rule me out of order if I slip up, but you know, we're all here because we care. We care about this county. We care about what's happening. We want to participate in it. And I know you do too. I mean, you've run for office, you don't get paid big bucks. You spend a lot of your time, and we appreciate that. However, I know on development agreements, number one, I know that you don't get a lot of participation yourselves in the development of those agreements in relation to tax abatements. And the public gets no participation in those agreements. Those are incredibly important. And I would like to propose perhaps looking at that in the next couple of months, because a lot of abatements are coming down the pike, a lot of agreements are coming forward, that we have a more public process before you get the development agreements signed, sealed, and delivered the night before, the weekend before you actually have to vote on them. And then you're told it's an up or down vote. You have to vote yes or no. And you're not prone to vote no on a development agreement that's been in negotiation. There should be a way to have a more public process where the public can be involved in suggesting items. You can be involved in a more robust way before those agreements hit the floor or hit your desk and you have to vote on them. On tax abatements, for example, I mean, there's a number of things that could be included. I don't disrespect our county employees who are involved in those negotiations. There are NDAs involved, but there could be a more public process in which we have an avenue to express our preferences to them. Finally, on tax abatements itself, Mr. Tanner, I'm going to provide you with an Upjohn Institute study which shows that less than 25% of tax abatements affect location decisions. It's a big scam in America that they do make decisions on the basis of tax abatements. They do not. They don't make the decisions on that basis. And the study, a meta study, has proven that in fact, very few decisions are made on the basis of tax abatements, and that it's used by companies, obviously, I would do it too, to generate more revenues for projects, more tax assistance for projects. Thank you very much, and I'll provide that documentation to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. I'm glad I let you speak. I couldn't have said it better myself. Anybody else online who'd like to take advantage and privilege of the floor? Hearing none, we will move to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. We are adjourned.